And just to make sure we're all on the same page, exam is next Tuesday, and your retake, if you're eligible, is Friday, March 11th. So please make sure you have these days. Next Tuesday is our final exam. And again, tomorrow we're going to talk all about your exam, all the questions you have about your exam, the rules and expectations of my exam. We'll do all that tomorrow. So we'll get you guys ready for Tuesday. So everybody have these dates. The exam is next Tuesday, and the retake, if you're eligible, is March 11th, Friday, March 11th. Everybody good? So we just started license law and commission rule last Thursday when we left each other. And we were starting off, we're on page 707. And we were starting off talking about the different types of brokers. Remember, North Carolina is a brokerage state, which means we're all brokers. Every licensee in this state is a broker, but there's different classifications. So you guys, soon to be the provisional broker, and this is where we left. This is the last slide that we saw when we left on Thursday. You guys, soon to be the provisional broker. Why don't you guys remind me in a private chat? Once you get your license, you're issued a license, and you're a provisional broker, what's your license status? What is your license status once you issue your license as a provisional broker? What is your license status? So once you're issued a license, congratulations, you pass a state exam, they hand you a real estate license. As a provisional broker, your license is inactive. Congratulations, here's your license, an inactive license that you cannot do anything with. How do you make your license active as a provisional broker? How do you make your license active as a provisional broker? You affiliate with a firm. As a provisional broker, so let me go back. As a provisional broker, to be active, you have to affiliate with a firm. You have to have a broker in charge take you under their wing. If you leave the firm as a provisional broker, your license goes back to inactive. I call my provisional brokers with training wheels. You guys can ride your bike, but you can't ride your bike without training wheels. So think of your BIC as your training wheels. Okay. Okay. How do you drop your provisional status? You do the 90 hours of post-licensing. Remind me in the chat, how many months do you have to finish your post-licensing? How many months do you have to finish your post-licensing as a provisional broker? Looks like we're good there. How many months? You have 18 months, 18 as a provisional broker to take 90 hours of post-licensing. Okay. Once as a provisional broker, and again, this is where we left off, but sooner if you can, absolutely. You drop your provisional status as soon as you finish post-licensing. What we're saying is the longest you have to complete post-licensing is 18 months. Failure to complete within 18 months means your license is inactive until you get it done, whether you're practicing or not. Once you complete your post-licensing and you drop your provisional status, you're just a broker, which is where most of us are and will maintain throughout a career. Broker can also be referred to as a full broker. A full broker or a broker is just one that has satisfied your post-licensing. You got your license, you dropped your provisional status, and you're a broker. Brokers may or may not be supervised by a broker in charge to be active. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. We're going to talk in just a little bit about, I know some of you are anxious to start your own firms, so we'll talk about that in just a bit. At some point in your career, you may choose to become the broker in charge. Again, the broker in charge is a broker. They are a broker. Each office location has to have a designated broker in charge. So if you have one of these firms with 5 locations, how many BICs do you have to have? How many designated BICs do you have to have? You got to have 5, right? You got to have one under each roof. We're going to talk a little bit more about the BIC and their responsibilities. How does one become a BIC? Well, to become a BIC, you have to have an active license, and you can't be a provisional broker. Then that kind of makes sense. You can't be responsible for PBs if you're a PB yourself. To be a broker in charge, you have to have 2 years full-time experience in sales or 4 years part-time, both within 5 years. So within 5 years, you got to get some field work. You got to get some experience underneath you. Honestly, I don't know how they determine full-time from part-time. I don't know. I don't know. When in 2020, when we were all looking for things to do, I went ahead and became BIC eligible. I went through the process and did it. And when I submitted my application, they wanted to know just where I've worked in the last 5 years. They didn't ask me for production or units. They just wanted to know basically my resume for my real estate career. So I don't know how they determine. Does your PB count towards this? Absolutely. Experience is experience. So as long as you have experience, as long as you have some knowledge of what it's like to be out there. And then there's a 12-hour BIC course that you have to complete. Upon completion of these things makes you BIC eligible. How do you spell eligible? E-L-I-G-A. Is that close enough? Everybody know what I'm talking about? Can we agree that's close to eligible? Yeah, it's still morning. These 3 things make you BIC eligible. Once you are BIC eligible, then you are eligible to become the designated broker in charge. Each office has a designated broker in charge. There are a lot of people out there that are BIC eligible that are not the designated BIC. Maybe they became BIC eligible for themselves. Thank you. Maybe they became eligible for themselves. Maybe they just wanted the experience, the knowledge. Maybe one day they want to be the designated broker in charge. But to be the designated BIC, you first have to become BIC eligible. To become BIC eligible, you have to meet these 3 criteria. So you guys are at least 2 years away. And in 2 years from now, when you're ready to become BIC eligible, you need to check license, law, and commission roll, because I'm not guaranteeing that it's not going to change between now and then. This is what it's like today to become BIC eligible. Each office has to have a designated broker in charge. And it's not a bad idea for firms to have BIC eligibles laying around, because what if the designated broker in charge doesn't show up for work today, right? You kind of want to be able to slide somebody in there as fast as you can. So that might be another reason. Again, we're going to talk more about BICs, your firms, that kind of thing in just a second. So 3 categories of broker: provisional broker, full broker, and BIC. In North Carolina, there's also a separate license status, a separate license category. It's called a limited non-resident commercial broker. And what this separate license will allow an agent with an active license in another state to come to North Carolina to engage in a limited number of commercial transactions. So if you're an active license in a different state, you can get a separate license called a limited non-resident commercial broker. Pretty much a limited non-resident commercial broker, they have to be sponsored by somebody. They can't just show up. Like, somebody with an active license in the state of North Carolina has to take responsibility, make sure they're doing things the way we do things here. That person can be a BIC, it could be a broker, it could even be a provisional broker. If you ever want to sponsor somebody that's coming in for a limited non-resident commercial broker, check with your firm and make sure your firm's policy allows it. Question came in, is there a timeline before you can do commercial? Nope. License is a license. Yep. So those are license statuses and categories. And again, we're going to talk more about your firm when you're ready to open your firm. We'll talk more about license status too. So we'll spend more time talking about active and inactive and expired licenses. So here's our funnel that we've seen a couple times. These are the activities that require a license. We talked about the transfer of real property for others for compensation. These three activities together require a real estate license in North Carolina. And when we talk about the transfer of real property, the activities involved around that, it's easy for us to remember LL&CR. List, lease, buy, exchange, auction, negotiate, and sell. All three of these activities are required. So again, as we've discussed, if you're selling your own home, if you're going for sale by owner, do you have to have a real estate license? No, because you're not doing it for others, are you? You're doing it for who? You're doing it for yourself. Now, if you want to help your mom or dad sell a house, or you want to help your BFF sell a house, now you're not doing it for yourself. No matter how close you are to it, you're still not doing it yourself. You're doing it for others. So if you want to help your parents sell their house, now you're not doing it for others. You're doing it for yourself. And guys, when we think of compensation, we tend to think of money. But remember, in basic contract law, we said compensation is just anything of value. So it may not necessarily mean that you're getting commission. You could just be getting something of value. Let's say, for example, your parents own a duplex. Your parents own the duplex. You don't, they do. And they tell you that they'll allow you to live in one of the units, and they're going to rent the other unit. And if you manage the other unit for them, they'll compensate you and not charge you rent. Do you need a real estate license to do that? Absolutely, because you're doing it for others and you're doing it for compensation. What's the compensation? Free rent. Is that something of value? Boy, in this day and age with rent, the prices the way they are, I sure think so. You guys with me? So all three pieces are required. When you guys affiliate with your firms, it's not uncommon in your firms to have unlicensed staff. You guys may get to a point in your career where you need help. Imagine that day. You're so busy, you need to hire somebody to help you out 10 hours a week. Isn't that awesome? You have the opportunity to bring somebody on under you as an unlicensed employee. We need to understand there's some rules when it comes to unlicensed employees. We're going to look at the list in just a second. But for right now, what this slide is telling you, one of the big differences between an unlicensed employee and a broker is how we get paid. An unlicensed employee can't receive commission. They can't receive referral fees. Why? Because the transfer of real property for others for compensation. Unlicensed employees are paid hourly or salary. That unlicensed employee gets paid whether or not you have a closing this week or not. So again, you bring somebody on board to work with you 10 hours a week, help you stuff mailings and put signs out and schedule appointments. You pay that person for 10 hours this week, regardless if you have a closing or not. So let's look, if you guys will, please turn to your book on page 709. And there's a list of things that the unlicensed employee may do. We're going to go through this list. I highly recommend you guys go through this list before next Tuesday morning. Ever hear what I just said? Okay. So 709, let's talk about the things that the unlicensed employee can do. They can receive and forward phone calls, emails, texts, They can communicate, they can submit listings and changes to MLS as long as the information they're inputted was provided to them by their employing broker. So they can serve the role as a data entry. They can make copies, secure copies from public records, public documents. They can put signs in the yard, lock boxes on the property. They can order and supervise repairs. They can act as a courier. They can drive around, drop stuff up, pick stuff up. They can provide basic factual information about the property. So somebody calls and has questions about the property, the unlicensed employee can answer basic questions. I think a good general rule of thumb with that one, if you can find it online, like if you can find it on Zillow or realtor.com, then the unlicensed employee can provide that information over the phone or an email. They can schedule appointments for showings. They can communicate with everybody. They can communicate with licensees, lenders, attorneys, home inspectors. Please note number 10. The unlicensed employee can show properties for rent. They cannot show properties for sale. Everybody see that? They can show for rent. They cannot show for sale. They can fill in the blanks of our pre-printed forms. So our agency agreements, offer to purchase and contract. The unlicensed employee can type in the forms and fill in the blanks as long as the information that they're entering was provided to them by their employing broker. So basically their employing broker is handing them a piece of paper or sending them an email saying, here are the facts, plug this into the pre-printed form. That's so important that we understand that. They can serve as a data entry only. They can maintain the trust account. We're going to talk about the trust account later today as well. They can assist in getting documents together for closing, and they can compute and disperse agents' commission checks. Again, when you get to the point of your career that you're ready to bring on help, you're going to want to make sure you're current on the laws and the rules of bringing on an unlicensed employee. Because here's the deal, you guys. Remember, the Real Estate Commission is a licensing regulatory board. So if you don't have a real estate license, what can the commission do to you? Absolutely nothing, right? So if the unlicensed employee doesn't act right, who are they going to go after? They're going to go after their licensed broker. So if you hire an unlicensed employee, it's your responsibility to make sure that your unlicensed employee follows the rules, license law and commission rules. There's some exemptions of people that do not need a real estate license. We've talked about the for sale by owner or the for rent by owner, the FURBO. An attorney, in fact, if you're acting as a full power of attorney on behalf of somebody else, you don't need a real estate license because you have that permission, you have that full power of attorney to act on their behalf. An attorney at law, when they're conducting their business of being a closing attorney. So our closing attorneys that handle our settlement do not need a license. Now, if the attorney at law wants to help their friend buy a house, now they need a license, right? So they don't need a license to act as a closing attorney. They do need a license to act as an agent. Anyone acting under a court order, so an executor of a will, a guardian, they would not need a real estate license. The trustee that's acting as the third party for the lender, for example, we talked about North Carolina as a three-party state. There's a grantor, a beneficiary, and a trustee when it comes to deeds of trusts. The trustee in that relationship doesn't need a real estate license. And then anybody employed by the housing authority dealing with properties owned by the housing authority does not need a license. So there are some exceptions. Questions so far? Why don't you guys remind me in a private chat? What is the main purpose of the Real Estate Commission? What is the main purpose? The main purpose of the Real Estate Commission. I believe this is our very first slide. Yeah. The number one purpose, the main purpose of the Real Estate Commission is to protect the public when they're dealing with us. The main purpose of the Real Estate Commission is to protect the public in dealing with us. Does it not stand to reason that we have more knowledge than the public? I mean, we have a license. We have a professional license saying we can help you buy or sell a house. Again, think about some of the price tags that come on a house. And the thing about buying a house, it's not like Amazon Prime. You can't return it within 2 weeks or whatever. You buy the house, it's yours. So they want to make sure that we have the best interest of the public. That's how they regulate our license. Your disciplinary action, if you ever get yourself in trouble, bottom line is coming down to how badly did you harm the commission's public? So let's meet our commissioners. The Real Estate Commission is composed of 9 members. Each member serves a 3-year term. And of the 9 members, at least 3 have to be brokers, at least 3 have to be licensed, and at least 2 are not. Isn't that interesting? At least 2 of our commissioners are a true representative of the public that they're protecting. Exactly, it's a checks and balance. Absolutely. A complaint comes in, they may look at these at least 2 members and say, as the general public, how do you feel about that? It's a true representation, and I like that. The purpose and the power of the Real Estate Commission, well, they issue us our license. We have to prove to the commission that we're worthy of a license. How do we prove that? Well, you pass this class and you pass your state exam, and you satisfy the background check, the character review, once you submit your application with your background check. Once you have your license, they regulate your license. We talked about disciplinary actions. Talk more about that in just a second. The Real Estate Commission provides education to the public and to licensees. They help educate the public and licensees. If you haven't been out and explored the Real Estate Commission's website yet, after Tuesday, I think you guys should go check it out. There's a wealth of knowledge on there. There's so many good things and good brochures and guidelines and things that we can do to help, for us to help educate the public. And they make it available to the public as well. Your pre-licensing class that you're in right now is regulated by the Real Estate Commission. When you guys take post-licensing, it's regulated by the Real Estate Commission. And in just a bit, we're going to talk about continuing education, or CE. And that's also regulated by the commission. That's the education that the commission provides licensees. Pre-licensing, post-licensing, and CE are the only requirements for education by the Real Estate Commission. Anything else, any other training or education you get is up to you and or your firm. But the Real Estate Commission only handles pre, post, and CE. And then, as we talked about, they have the power to discipline our license. They can only discipline licensees. because that's who they regulate. An unlicensed person cannot be disciplined. Now, they can go on a list to never get a license. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But they can only regulate our license. They're a governing licensing regulatory board. They have the power to make reasonable bylaws, rules, and regulations. We've been talking about license law and commission rule. Commission rule is North Carolina Real Estate Commission rule. They have the power to create their own rules that we've been referring to as commission rules. The one thing the Real Estate Commission cannot do is get involved with matters of money. They're not going to regulate your commission split. They're not going to regulate how much your firm charges the seller. They're not going to regulate referral fees. If you're not happy with the commission split you're getting from your firm, go find another firm. So I always want you guys, before you join anywhere, talk to 2 or 3 different firms. Shop around. Every firm is different. Every firm has its own policy, and that does include commission splits. I know the idea of 100% commission split sounds really nice, doesn't it? But do you know what you get from the firm with 100% commission split? Very little. 100% commission split, you very well may buy in your own yard signs and lock boxes, for example. So that's why I want you guys to shop around. See what best fits you, especially as you're new, getting started. When it comes to disciplinary action, the Real Estate Commission can take action on its own or from a complaint. The injured consumer can file a complaint on the Real Estate Commission's website. There's a button on the home page, file a complaint. Just because somebody hits that button and files a complaint against you does not mean you're going to lose your license. The Real Estate Commission reviews it, makes sure that it's a license law and commission rule violation, make sure that it's a legitimate complaint. You know, I don't like the color of Julie's shirt. Is it necessarily a violation of license law and commission rules? So there are complaints that come down there that never get past the file a complaint button. But if the commission reviews the complaint and they determine that it's worth further investigation, they will send you a letter of inquiry, also known as the dreaded brown envelope. The letter of inquiry is your opportunity to respond to the complaint. The letter of inquiry is not saying you've lost your license. The letter of inquiry is your opportunity to respond to your complaint. And do you guys think you're going to be able to call the Real Estate Commission and say, I didn't do it? How do you think you're going to respond to your complaint? By providing your documentation. What do we document? Every single thing. Your documentation, your email correspondence, your text communications, your properly executed paperwork. All of that is your response to the letter of inquiry. Once you respond, they'll review further. Again, you guys, the commissioners are humans. They understand that there's 2, sometimes even 3 sides to every story. So the file a complaint is launching an investigation. So you respond to your letter of inquiry, they review it again. They need more information, they'll reach out to you. If they want to know more, they'll reach out to you. If you're ever invited to meet with the 9 commissioners, they're still not in person, they're still on Zoom. So if they ever request a hearing, in which case you get to meet with all 9 commissioners to state your side of the story, you are always welcome to hire your own representation. We are always entitled to have our own legal representation. if they determine that the complaint is warranted of a disciplinary action. There's several things the commission can do. They can censor or reprimand your license. Think of both of these as a slap across the wrist. Don't you do that again. Censure or reprimand. They can suspend your license. Maybe it's 3 months, 6 months, 2 years. Or they can revoke your license, take it back. They can rescind it, take it back. All licensees also have the opportunity to surrender your license. If you surrender your license, you're done in real estate. So you have that option. If the complaint comes in, you can surrender your license. Question came in about E&O. I think we talked about E&O back in 7 or 8 briefly. It's in one of the e-practices or in practices, but firms typically do provide errors and omissions. So if your mistake is unintentional, then errors and omissions may come in and help cover you. It's like what do the doctors have? Medical malpractice. That's our version of it, is errors and omissions. I think it's important that we understand that each disciplinary action is handled on a case-by-case basis, because each transaction is unique and different. Each situation is unique and different. So each disciplinary action is going to be handled in a unique and different way, case-by-case basis. In other words, there is no across the board. If you file a complaint, you're going to get your license suspended, right? There is no across the board disciplinary action. It's all reviewed by the 9 commissioners. Questions, comments on that? Once you guys get licensed, when you're buying or selling property for yourself, renting property for yourself that you own, you are held to license law and commission rule. Once you get your license, you're kind of held to a higher standard, because now the real estate commission knows that you know. You're not a member of the general public anymore. Agents buy and sell and rent properties all day, every day. I know agents buying and selling houses. It's like their little addiction. It's like some of us like shoes or purses or whatever, wallets. Yeah, for them, houses are their thing. So they do it all day, every day. But you're held to a higher standard. The commission could put an injunctive relief for a licensed or unlicensed person. An injunction is a legal stop. So if the commission puts an injunctive relief on you or an unlicensed person, they're forcing you to quit while they're investigating the situation. So while they can't discipline unlicensed people, they can issue an injunctive relief. And again, put them on a list. Guys, I remember back in my admin day, when I left administrative work, I was the assistant for the CEO and the COO of a company. And the CEO of our company was working hard in her office one day, playing around on Facebook. And she called me and she said, "Julie, come here and look at this." And I went to her office and I said, "What's up?" So her and I were playing around on Facebook together, working hard. And she said, "Who is this person?" And I looked and I said, "I don't know. This person was on Facebook advertising their services for him by our firm. I work for this firm. Call me to help you buy or sell." And she said, "I've never heard of this person before. Does he work for us?" So I don't think so. So we dug a little deeper. Come to find out, oh, she was on the phone with the real estate commission right then and there. But come to find out, he had started pre-licensing. He had never finished. And now here he is on Facebook saying, "Call me to help you buy or sell. And I work for this company." He's now on a list. He will never get a real estate license in this state because he was acting like a license, using our name without permission, acting like a broker. They put a permanent injunction on him. It's also important that we understand that while the real estate commission can't fine us, the injured party can also, hire an attorney, and the court can fine you. So while the real estate commission can't fine you, the court can. So the real estate commission regulates your license, the court can fine you. So any violation may also be persecuted in a court of law. Any question about our North Carolina Real Estate Commission? So starting on page 710, we talk about something called material facts. This next little section is going to be a nice review for us. We talked about material facts in Unit 7. We're talking about it again in License Law and Commission Rule. What do I hope that tells you about material facts? Kind of important, right? So we talked about things that are considered material facts. Facts about the property itself. Are there any structural defects? Does the roof leak? Does the basement flood in the spring rain? Material facts are also facts relating directly to the property. Is there a proposed zoning amendment that is going to change the zoning? Is there a road widening project? DOT going to widen the road in front of the property. So they're not facts about the property, but they're directly related to the property. Material facts are facts relating to the ability of the agent's principal to complete the transaction. This typically revolves around money. If the buyer can't get loan approval, that's a material fact. If the seller's in foreclosure, that's a material fact. The other one that we talked about, that's not on this list, but it is in Unit 7. A material fact is also a fact that's of specific importance to our clients. Remember my very simple philosophy. If it's important to my buyer, then it's important to me. If it's important to my seller, then it's important to me. Once they share something of importance to me, it becomes a material fact to me to make sure they get or don't get what they do or don't want. We also talked about things that are not considered material facts. Death or serious illness, stigmatized properties are not a material fact. The presence of convicted sex offenders nearby is not a material fact. So go back, I would review that in Unit 7. You got it here again on 710, 711. When it comes to material facts, we talk about the prohibited acts of material facts, the big four, I call them. The big four are prohibited acts of material facts, how you mishandle material facts. When it comes to material facts, you can either lie about a material fact. Misrepresentation is a lie. You opened your mouth and a lie fell out. Maybe you said it verbally, maybe you texted it, you emailed it, you put it in your advertising. But somehow you got the wrong information out there. So you either lie about it or you omit it. You keep your mouth shut. You don't tell it, you don't text it, you don't email it. Material facts may be done willfully, intentionally, on purpose. You meant to lie, you meant to omit it. Or they can be done negligently. You didn't mean to, but it still happened. So the big four of material facts: Pages 711 to 713 gives you guys some good examples of all four. There's some examples back in Unit 7 as well. I think looking at the examples helps you guys better understand it. I think it makes it easier for you guys to wrap your brain around the big four. If you see this on your test, you're looking at A, B, C, and D: willful misrep, negligent, willful omission, and negligent omission. A, B, C, and D. If you see this on your exam, you're going to have a scenario, and the scenario will ask you, what's the agent guilty of? If I were you guys, I would first read the scenario and ask yourself, was it a lie or was it omission? Did the broker in the scenario open their mouth and lie, or did they keep the information to themselves? Did they omit it? Once you determine that, then go back through the scenario and ask yourself if it was done intentionally or unintentionally. Was it done willfully, on purpose, or was it done negligently? Questions on our material facts? Starting on page 713, we're getting into a whole laundry list of things that we can't do. Starting on page 713 are things that we can't do. They really do take the fun out of it. We cannot make false promises. You cannot make any kind of false promise likely to influence, persuade, or induce somebody to enter into this agreement, somebody to purchase or sell this home. No false promises. That does include advertising or communicating with other agents. Guys, if you tell somebody you're going to do something, do it. Remember we talked about somebody asks you a question? Don't just make something up. If you don't know the answer, look at them and say, that's a really good question. I don't know. Let me get back to you. And that's a perfectly acceptable answer as long as you plan on getting back to them. If you have no intentions of getting back to them, just say, I don't know, and stop talking. If you tell somebody you're going to do something, then do it. That adds up, doesn't it? So we can't make false promises. We can't have conflict of interest. Specifically, we can't have undisclosed dual agency. What do we know about dual agency? Dual agency is intentionally created with informed written consent. I'm going to say that again. Dual agency is intentionally created with informed written consent. You can't just start acting like a dual agent. That's called undisclosed dual agency. We have to have express authority from both parties to act as a dual agent. Another conflict of interest is self-dealing. When it comes to old car, whose interest do I put first, mine or my clients? My clients. The law of agency says I put them ahead of me, right? Their interest ahead of mine. If I were to not do that, that would be self-dealing. I love the example of this in your book. Let's say you're getting ready for a listing appointment. Somebody calls you and they say you want a listing appointment. You're a good agent, so you do all of your homework. You learn as much about the properties you can to prepare for your listing appointment. And in doing your research, you learn that there's a proposed zoning amendment on the table. And if that zoning amendment passes, it's going to greatly increase the values of the properties in that area. Value is going to go up. You go to your listing appointment, you're talking to your potential seller, and they never once mention this zoning amendment. And you think, well, gee, maybe they don't know. So you look at your seller and you say, I'll tell you what, instead of going through the issues of listing and selling your property, why don't you just let me buy it? You buy the property, it closes, zoning amendment passes, values go up, and you turn around and sell the property for a profit. Is that self-dealing? Heck yeah. Now, what if you go to the listing appointment and you tell your seller about the proposed zoning amendment, and the seller says, wow, I never knew about that. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Julie, despite all that, I can't afford to wait. I have to sell now. Now, can you offer to buy the property from them? Absolutely, because you disclose that. Everybody with me? You disclose that material fact. Remember, Old Car says we always have our client's best interest ahead of all others, and that includes our own. Anytime I put my interest first, that's self-dealing, and that is a conflict of interest.
Julie,
Yeah.
so would you email or get something in writing in that case just to CYA?
How do I feel about documentation?
Yes.
If you find yourself saying, should I write, should I document? Yes.
Yeah, because I can imagine, like, if the person said fine, then their son or daughter said, what?
Exactly. So you have this conversation, you go home. Anytime you have a verbal conversation of substance, you go home and follow it up with a text or an email talking about, per our conversation, I'm going to buy your house and make lots of money when this zoning amendment passes, right? You may want to put it differently than that, but document what? Everything. The other conflict of interest that we discuss is representing another broker without consent. You can be, as a full broker, you can be dual affiliated. You can have your license with two firms, and it's okay as long as you have permission of both brokers. I don't know about your retirement plan, but mine looks like down at the coast with my toes in the sand, just spending my days hanging out under an umbrella somewhere, little drink in my hand with one of those little umbrellas in it. You know, that's where I see myself in 30 years. I may choose to have my license at the coast and keep it in Winston-Salem. And that's okay, as long as Winston has consent from the beach has consent from Winston. So a full broker can be dual affiliated as long as you have permission from both brokers. Improper brokerage commission. As we mentioned earlier, the unlicensed person cannot be paid a commission or referral fee. Unlicensed persons are paid hourly or salary. They're not paid a commission. They're not paid a referral fee. They are paid hourly or salary. And provisional brokers cannot accept payment from anyone other than their supervising BIC or BIC. So remember, we talked last week, a provisional broker can have two BICs as long as both BICs are under the same roof. So an example of that is if you want to join a team and the team is affiliated with the firm. Your team probably has a broker in charge. The firm would have a broker in charge. And those are the only two people that can pay you. You cannot accept money from anywhere else other than your BIC or your firm. We cannot act unworthy or incompetent. Boy, they really do take the fun out of it, don't they? We can't do anything fun. We have to act worthy. We have to act competently. When I am completing pre-printed forms, I have a duty to make sure that I'm preparing those forms, completing those forms correctly. When in doubt, find out. There's so many resources out there for you. You have your BIC, you have your firms. You have peers. Once you guys join the North Carolina Association of Realtors, you have access to a legal hotline. You can call a dang attorney, part of your membership dues. Isn't that nice? You'll have your real estate manual, access to the commission. Don't just put something in a blank for the sake of putting something in a blank. If you're not sure what goes in the blank, find out. We also have a duty to make sure that our clients are getting accurate closing disclosures. How do we make sure they're accurate? We review them for accuracy. We make sure the sales price is correct, due diligence, earnest money. We now know how to prorate taxes. We can now calculate interim interest. We can't engage in improper, fraudulent, or dishonest dealing. I hope none of you are sitting here going, oh man, I can't do that. Does a lot of this stuff make sense? I sure hope so. We have to conduct ourselves in a proper, non-fraudulent, non-dishonest manner. Guys, remember the R in old car is what? Reasonable skill, care, and diligence. Again, everything is handled on a case by case. We can't engage in discriminatory practices. Any violation of fair housing will also be a violation of license law. So any violation of federal or state fair housing is a violation of license law. So not only are you facing the consequences from federal and state, but you're also dealing with disciplinary action from the Real Estate Commission. Everybody repeat after me. I am not an attorney. We are not attorneys unless you are. If you're not an attorney, then we cannot engage in the practice of law. We cannot perform legal services. I cannot draft legally binding documents or addenda or contingencies. Leases. I cannot offer title advice. I cannot offer my title opinion. I can't tell buyers how they should take title. When your unmarried buyer looks at you and says, should I do joint tenancy or tenancy in common? What you gonna do? You gonna whip out your pre-licensing book and say, oh, wow, here's the difference in the two? No, you're gonna have them talk to their attorney, have the attorney discuss the options that unmarried buyers have. I can't provide legal advice of any kind. Guys, this is what I think happens, because agents get in trouble for this all the time, by the way. I think what happens is agents think that they're helping. People are going to ask you, because I'm a heck of a lot cheaper than an attorney. So people are going to ask you, and you may think you're helping. When you respond and you give that legal advice, you may think you're helping. Maybe you had a similar scenario a couple years ago, and this is how that scenario was handled a couple years ago. Just because that's how that was handled 2 years ago doesn't mean that this is the right for this scenario today. Every single transaction is different. There is no transaction that's the same as the one before. So just because something similar happened 2 years ago doesn't give us the right to say, oh, well, this is where I was 2 years ago. Is everybody good with that? Don't help. The best thing you can do to help is to tell them to do what? Call the attorney. You guys should get in the habit. Part of your morning affirmations, when you're getting ready in the morning and you look yourself in the mirror, just keep reminding yourself, I'm going to have a good day. Everything's going to be all right. And I am not an attorney. Okay, questions, comments so far? We got some more to cover, but I see it's break time too.
Julie,
So-
at some point, can we go back just real quick over somewhere in the recesses of my brain? I remember there were certain things that we could write in and they could initial. Is that on the listing?
You mean for the forms?
Yeah,
I
we're
can fill
talking
in
about we
blanks.
can't, we're saying we can't draft verbiage, which I get.
Correct.
I'm just trying to remember what it was that we could. Whenever I think of what we can't do, I start thinking about what we can do.
So
And
what
what can we write?
we can fill in the blanks of the pre-printed forms that are provided to us. So if there's a blank, I'm allowed to fill it in.
So what was it that we talked about that took initials? It took-
Change. If we're negotiating the purchase price and we counter offer, we're going to strike through the old purchase, write in the new price, and everybody's got to initial and date it.
Okay, so the original offer to purchase, we fill in the blanks as counter offers start happening. We don't have to do a whole new one. That's
Correct.
when we strike
can mark-
out
yep, yep.
and we get, that's the
Yep.
only thing that can be written in, initialed. So the original offer to purchase is the only thing that can be,
Agency agreements, pre-printed addenda, pre-printed leases.
okay,
Right,
all of the
all the
pre-printed
printed
forms.
forms that we have available for us, all those fields are negotiable. And once the
With it-
parties come to an agreement, that's what we do. That's what we put in the blank is the terms that the parties agree to. And that's all we're allowed to do. Just
Okay,
fill
I
in the
see.
blanks. Yep.
Okay, that's where I'm getting super confused with those questions about can we fill in, and then it's like, oh, if each party initial, well, I can't remember what can and can't be done.
Yep. I can't draft. I can't add. I can't delete. I can't say, no, this provision doesn't work for us. So let's just cross it out. All I can do is fill in the blanks.
Okay, and then if we change it, it's an amendment. If we add, it's an addendum.
Yep. That's right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I
Other
have a
questions?
question.
Sure.
Okay, so I heard the same things, but it's probably just me. But on page 715, it says, we're talking about the provisional brokers. A provisional broker can work for two BICs or they cannot,
They can, as long as both BICs are under the same roof. So
as
if you're
long
with
as
a
they're under
team-
the same.
If
Okay.
we are with a team, the team has a BIC. The team is going to be affiliated with a firm. The firm has a BIC.
Okay,
So a
got
provisional broker can be dual affiliated only if
I got you.
both BICs are under the same roof.
Okay, but in order to be affiliated with two BICs from two different places, you need to be non-provisional.
Full broker.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. Anything else? Good questions. All right, let's take 10. All right. We're back. So we are not attorneys. And if you're just coming back, please remember to let me know in the chat. I've already taken attendance. Continuing on, page 716, violating any commission rule. Any violation of commission rule is a violation of license law and commission rule. This is kind of the catch-all. Anything that they might have missed from this section. Your commission license law and commission rule is the rest of Appendix A. A lot of what we studied in this class is license law and commission rule, but if you want to read the actual rule, it's in Appendix A. Before we're in the section that we're in right now, we're going to see some more of that in just a second. And then there's this category of other things we're not allowed to do. Obtain your license fraudulently. You guys don't lie on your license application. If they find out, you'll lose your license. How can they find out? Doesn't matter. If they find out you lied on your license application, they will revoke your license. There was a case a couple years ago, a gentleman in Greensboro lost his license. It was discovered that he lied on his license application. How did they discover it, you ask? His ex-girlfriend reported him. Doesn't matter how they find out. Y'all be nice to those exes. It doesn't matter how they find out. Once they find out and investigate it, isn't that horrible? And well, maybe we don't know what he did to her, right? There's two sides to every story. Once you're licensed, if you're convicted of a misdemeanor or felony, you have to report that to the Real Estate Commission. We know we do a background check before you get your license. Once you pass that and you get your license, you're not off the hook. So if you're convicted of a misdemeanor or felony once you're licensed, I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. So we'll revisit that. If you're unlicensed employee, does anything that they're not allowed to do as an unlicensed employee, then that's going to get you in trouble. Remember, they can't do anything to the unlicensed employee, but they can reprimand the broker that employed them. So you have a duty to make sure your unlicensed employee does what they're supposed to do. And then if you get disciplinary action from another professional licensing board, this is not your driver's license. Anybody have another professional license? CPA, CNA? Couple of you? If you get yourself in trouble with that licensing board, you have to report it to the Real Estate Commission. What are they going to do to you? I don't know. It's handled by a case-by-case basis. Some of you may live on a border state. Anybody live close to Virginia or close to South Carolina? You may decide to get licensed in another state. I don't know how you get your license in Virginia. Contact the Virginia Real Estate Commission to find out. But if you get yourself licensed in another state and you get yourself in trouble with the Virginia Real Estate Commission, you also have to report that to the North Carolina Real Estate Commission. So any professional license, again, we'll talk more about that, specifics in the rule in just a minute when we get there. So the whole laundry list of things that we can't do also come with examples. That started on what, 713, and it goes over to 716. So again, I think the examples help. Yeah, well, did you get convicted? We'll talk about that again more. So now in Appendix A, page 716. We're going to switch gears just a bit and talk about general brokerage provisions. And the front part of this is going to be a good review for us. So the first thing addressed in our general brokerage provisions is our written agency agreements. Our written agency agreements must be signed by all parties. The parties being the buyer or seller or lessor or tenant, landlord or tenant, and the firm. Because my relationship with my firm is that of a general agent, I'm allowed to sign agency agreements on behalf of the firm. It's one thing I'm allowed to do as a general agent with my firm. So it has to be signed by all parties. When you're working with owners, either sellers or lessors, for sale or for rent, when you're working with owners, I cannot perform a single service without having a written agency agreement completed and signed. When you're working with owners, you have to have a written agency agreement from the onset. Commission rule does allow us to work with buyers and tenants under an oral agency agreement at first. Commission rule does allow us to work with buyers and tenants under an oral agency agreement at first. The latest I have to put that oral agency agreement in writing and signed is when I'm ready to present an offer on their behalf. We cannot present an offer on somebody's behalf under an oral agency agreement. Please hear me when I say oral agency agreement. Is an oral agency agreement an agency agreement? Oral agency agreement. It is an agency agreement. I owe that buyer OCAR. It's an express agreement, which means the terms are stated, they're laid out. I still explain agency, dual agency, all that. But it's oral, it's not in writing. I owe that buyer OCAR. In addition, our written agency agreements have to have a definite end date. We have to have a definite end date. Remember when we talked about our property management agreement? Property management agreements may allow for an automatic renewal, but that's the only one that allows for an automatic renewal. It's our property management agreement. All of our written agency agreements have to contain the non-discrimination clause saying that we will not discriminate on anybody on the basis of Fred's corn, the protected classes. Pretty much anything you sign as a broker will include your license number. So once you get your license, you're going to get a 6-digit number. Go ahead and memorize it because you're going to use it everywhere you go. Put it on a flashcard if you have to, but go ahead and memorize it because you'll need to know it. I swear the Real Estate Commission has no idea who Julie A. Campbell is, but they do know who 264172 is. That's how they identify us down in Raleigh. So let's go back to the oral buyer agency agreement again. What if I'm ready to present an offer on behalf of a buyer and they refuse to sign an agency agreement? If they refuse to sign, I cannot present for the buyer as the buyer's agent. In order for me to present an offer on their behalf, I have to have a written buyer agency agreement. And if they refuse to sign, I can't present it as a buyer's agent. If they refuse to sign, I have two choices. Maybe I can get them to do a buyer agency for just that one address. Maybe we enter into an agency agreement for 123 Main Street. If it works out, I'm their agent. If it doesn't, we've lost nothing. Maybe by then I've gained their trust, so they're more apt to enter into an agency agreement with the next property they make the offer on. But we do have the option of doing an agency agreement just for one. Or we can offer to switch from a buyer's agent to a seller sub-agent, but proceed with caution. If we're switching from being a buyer's agent to a seller sub-agent, we're downgrading the consumer. We're telling the consumer, you're no longer my client, you're now my customer. We have to fully advise the buyer about what that means to them. And the biggest thing that they need to be aware about is that now, as a seller sub-agent, I have a duty to the seller, and anything confidential I know about my buyer, I now have to share with my seller. The commission does not recommend us switching from buyer's agent to seller sub-agent. Use this as a last resort, but remember the full disclosure thing. The buyer has to understand what they're giving up. If the buyer says, no, I'm not signing anything, and I'm absolutely not comfortable being downgraded to a customer, then I'm out. I have no other legal alternative to work with them. You're either my client or my customer. And if you say I don't want to be either, I have no other options. Question comes in, how does that affect commissions? That's up to the firm's policy. If you get paid different as a buyer's agent or seller sub-agent, that's up to the policy. General brokerage commission, also general brokerage provisions, also discuss agency disclosure. This is our working with real estate agents. Applies to sales transactions only. Does working with real estate agents, is it required for lease transactions? Everybody shake your head no. Working with real estate only applies to sales transactions. It does not apply to lease. We have a duty to provide our working with real estate agents no later than or at the time of first substantial contact. First substantial contact is that moment in time when the conversation switches gears from the property to the people. Once you start asking the people lots of questions, how much can you afford? What kind of house do you want? Where do you want to live? We've crossed that line. I'm asking questions that are going to get to first substantial contact. That buyer comes in your open house and just starts talking. We have to buy something within 2 months, and this is our price point, and we've hit first substantial contact. It's never too early to do working with real estate agents, but there is a time that it's too late. And when is it too late? Once we've passed first substantial contact. Y'all don't let the consumer just keep talking. I know you don't want to be rude and not interrupt them, but if you keep letting them talk, you are being rude. You're putting them in a position. Remember, the biggest thing that the consumer needs to understand when we're doing our working with real estate agents is that I don't owe you confidentiality unless you decide to hire me. So when you're over here telling me everything all about your life and why you want to buy this house and when you have to buy it and how much you're willing to pay and da-da-da-da-da, that's knowledge for the world. I don't owe you confidentiality until you decide to hire me, which is why handing them the working with real estate agent disclosure, handing it to them and saying, just sign here is not enough. We need to review it. We need to discuss it. We need to go over it with them. Disclosure of agency status by a seller's agent and sub-agent to a prospective buyer. So when you're working with the seller, and you meet a prospective buyer, we have a duty to do our agency disclosure at first substantial contact. When you're already working with a seller and you're communicating with a prospective buyer, we disclose our status, the fact that I owe my seller confidentiality at first substantial contact. Who can remember, and you can show me on your hands, if first substantial contact doesn't happen face to face, maybe it happens on the phone or via email. How long do I have to provide the disclosure? Look at you guys are ready for me. How long do I have to provide the disclosure? 3 days. So if they call me and start talking, I say, whoa, stop talking. I can still have the discussion with them on the phone, right? Hey, stop talking. This is for your own protection. I don't know you confidentiality. I still discuss it with them, but the rule says I have 3 days to get them the actual disclosure. If I'm a buyer's agent communicating with a seller or a seller's agent, I disclose my status of being a buyer's agent at initial contact. Initial contact is like, hi, my name is Julie, and I'm working with a buyer that's interested in your home. The difference in initial contact and first substantial contact. Initial contact is when you very first meet me. First substantial contact is when that conversation switches gears from the property to the people. Let's say your buyer wants to see a house this afternoon. Something hit the market this morning and your buyer wants to see it this afternoon. We use a centralized showing service here in the Triad. We use a program called Showing Time. I can go into Showing Time and schedule all my showings in one place. When the request for the showing goes to let me back up. When I'm making the request, I have to select my status. Who am I making this request? Am I a buyer's agent and am I a seller sub-agent? When that request goes to the listing agent and the seller, it says Julie Campbell, comma, buyer's agent, comma, wants to see your property this afternoon at 2 o'clock. That's the initial contact. The first time you heard about me was when you were getting the request for me to show your property this afternoon. What if your buyer says, I'm interested in this property, but I got a question about it first? Great, let me call the listing agent. You call the listing agent and say, hey, this is Julie Campbell. I'm working with a buyer that's interested in your new listing at 123 Main Street. And we just have a listing. A few questions before we show it. So let me go back, make sure we're good, make sure everybody sees the difference. If you are a seller's agent or a seller sub-agent communicating with prospective buyers, you disclose your status at first substantial contact. If you're a buyer's agent communicating to sellers or their agent, you do so at initial contact. General brokerage provisions. Also discuss dual agency. Talked about it, unit 7 and 8. Again, starting on page 718. Dual agency is intentionally created with informed written consent. Dual agency does not just happen. Dual agency is intentionally created with informed written consent. Don't say, we're going to do dual, sign here. You explain what it means to do dual. You have a conversation about what dual agency looks like. And with dual agency, because the buyer agency agreement can be oral at first, So can the consent to dual agency. Again, even though it's oral, it's still express. And express means what? Clearly stated. We can't just start acting as a dual agent because it's an oral. We still have to explain it. If you're explaining oral buyer agency and oral dual agency, are you going to go home and follow up that conversation with your buyer with an email? Everybody, please shake your head yes, adamantly. Thank you. So we meet face to face. I explain oral buyer agency, dual agency. I go home and I type up an email. So nice meeting you. I look forward to working with you. By the way, here are the things that we discussed earlier today. Auction sales are a totally different beast. When you guys see auction sales, I want you to put them in their own little bucket. The only time you have to worry about auction sales is if you're specifically asked about auction sales. If you're not specifically asked about auction sales, then just pretend like they don't exist. Auction sales are in their own separate bucket all by themselves. There's no need for agency disclosure. It's presumed that the auctioneer works for the seller. You're not going to have dual agency in an auction sale. If the buyer's represented, they're going to be represented by another firm. And in an auction sale, the buyer's agent has to disclose their status no later the time of writing the contract. So in the auction sales, the gavel comes down, the auctioneer says sold. Congratulations, we're under contract. The auctioneer has the right to bind the seller. So when that gavel comes down, we are legally bound to each other. Obviously, the very next thing we need to do is get that thing in writing, right? At that time, the buyer has to disclose their status. So auction sales are the exception to sales rules. Again, you guys, if the question doesn't specifically say auction sales, then just pretend like auction sales doesn't exist. Everybody with me? There's sales, and then there's auction sales. So dual agency status of the firm. Simplest breakdown of dual agency I know how to do. One firm, one transaction, two clients. One firm, one transaction, two clients. Firm ABC is representing the seller of 123 Main Street. Firm ABC is also representing the buyer of 123 Main Street. Dual agency may be one broker working with both. Dual agency may be two brokers with the same firm, one working with the seller, one working with the buyer. How does commission work for buyer agent? It's up to your firm's policy. Your firm policy dictates your commission, how you're going to get paid, how much you're going to get paid. Do you get paid more as a dual agent? It's up to the firm's policy. For an auction, it's up to the firm's policy. So if the auctioneer agrees to pay you, you get your commission. If the auctioneer is not paying you, you go to your buyer. Guys, remember our buyer's agency agreement is also an employment contract, an employment agreement. And our buyer agency agreement says, I will always ask the seller to pay my commission first. But if they won't, then the buyer has to pay me. So if the auctioneer is not willing to pay you, then your buyer must, because that's the agency agreement that they entered into. Don, I'm not understanding the question. I don't understand how I can be on both sides. Am I selling and buying? Right, right.
I think I've confused myself. So
So
let me
I
think
can
on it a
represent
minute.
myself. I can represent myself as a seller. I can represent myself as a buyer, but it would be two different transactions, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Take dual agency one step further. If the firm allows, we may be able to offer designated dual agency. Everybody, please listen. I will give you time to write this down. I beg you guys to listen to me. Designated dual agency is a form of dual. Designated dual agency is a form of dual. It's not two different things. It's taken dual agency one step further. In order to do designated, I first have to have permission to do dual. So designated dual agency is one firm, one transaction, two clients. Designated dual agency is always two brokers. Designated can never be one. Both dual and designated are brokers within the same firm. One firm, one transaction, two clients. There's some caveats to being designated. First off, your firm policy has to allow it. Firm policy has to allow designated. You can't be designated if you have prior confidential information about the other side. If you're working with the seller, your BIC will look at you and say, do you know anything about my buyer that could negatively impact them in this transaction? We can't have prior confidential information about the other side. And this is probably the biggest problem topic in this section. The provisional broker and the broker in charge cannot be designated. They can be in dual agency. Yes to dual, no to designated. The PB and the broker in charge cannot be designated. They can be in dual.
Julie, if it helps, I like to think of that as when you're a PB, you're kind of tethered to your BIC, and in
Not kind
designated,
of, you exactly are tethered to your BIC.
yeah, and so like in
So-
designated, you said like you go to opposite sides of the wall, but
Yep.
if you're tethered, you can't be on opposite sides of the wall.
Exactly. If your BIC is doing their job, they know something confidential about the provisional broker's client. If the BIC's doing their job, because your BIC's in your back pocket as a provisional broker. So if your BIC's doing their job, they know something about the provisional broker's client. So just the very nature of their relationship says they cannot be designated. Your BIC may not be able to be designated with a broker if they know prior confidential information. But if the BIC doesn't have prior confidential information of the broker's client, they can be designated against a broker. They can't be as a provisional broker. It's nothing about experience. It's about the BIC doing their job and being in the PB's back pocket. The BIC might have been with you at the listing appointment, or at least you told the BIC you were going, because the BIC says, hey, what are you doing today? Your BIC is in your back pocket as a provisional broker. So do your head one way or the other. Can a PB and a BIC be dual agents? I see most heads saying yes. A PB and a BIC can be dual. Could a PB and a BIC be designated? Questions?
Julie,
Yep.
can you give me a scenario where a PB and a BIC are in dual agency?
Provisional broker has a listing. BIC brings the buyer. Both
Okay.
buyer and seller have agreed to dual agency.
I kind of think about it like, who's doing the choosing? If the customer is choosing the agents, I guess, if the customer's doing the choosing and there's
No
no,
customer. No
or
customer.
I'm sorry, the client, if the client is doing the choosing, so I want Dawn as my broker and somebody else wants Julie, the clients have done the choosing. In that case, Julie and Dawn probably don't know anything. Maybe they do, and that would be discussed, but the client has chosen the brokers. In designated, the firm has chosen the brokers.
And no
So
matter
who-
what, and that's a good way to think about it. No matter what, the clients enter into this with informed written consent.
Yeah,
So they're choosing after being informed. Absolutely. If it goes to designated, wouldn't that cost the agent their original commission? If I can't designate you because you have prior confidential information and you lose that transaction, I'll get your referral fee. Right? I'll get you paid a referral fee because this BIC will get you. Now, I don't know what your BIC's going to do because remember, commission is up to the firm's policy, right? But this BIC would get you a referral fee if you can't work with the party because we're in designated. We don't have to go into designated. Guys, remember the scenario we gave in class where all of you get your license and you come work for Julie's Real Estate Shop. And we're sitting in sales meeting and one of you has a listing. And I say, tell us about your listing. And you say, well, it's a nice 3-bed, 2-bath with a garage, 1-story slab, da, da, da. Is there anything that could negatively impact your client, the transaction? No, we're talking about the property, right? Let's say I'm not a good BIC and I'm not really paying attention. I go over here and get me a bagel and I'm spreading my cream cheese and you keep going. My sellers have to sell immediately because they're going through this pretty nasty divorce and they got to get away with each other as soon as they can. So the faster we can sell, the better. Have you just crossed that line from property to people? And because you talked about the people, anybody that attended sales meeting today can never be designated because you now know something confidential about the other side because you blabbed. So if everybody was in attendance at sales meeting this morning, designated isn't an option for this transaction, right? Because you all have prior confidential information. This is worth me saying one more time. When it comes to agency, when it comes to fair housing, you can talk about the property all day long. Don't talk about the people.
so, okay, in that situation, let's say we've had this meeting and now somebody's blabbed and the next day someone calls me as a potential buyer.
Mhm.
And I have confidential information because I already know the seller's willing to do all the things.
Mhm.
While we're in, let's say they don't want to do anything written, while we're in oral, this is where I start getting confused. Okay, so
We can do dual. We can still do dual.
we can still do dual, but as soon as that happens, I know confidential information. I have to start telling my buyer.
No,
No,
because even though we're in dual, there's still certain confidential information that we can't share from one party to the other. The confidential information, price, term, and motive. So even though my buyer may be willing to pay more or the seller might be willing to accept less, that doesn't give me this golden ticket to start blabbing that information. So there's still certain confidential information that the dual agent keeps from one party to the other.
Okay, that's where I was getting confused. Because
So
how do you,
remember,
if you already know it, does that completely take dual agency out?
That doesn't, right, that
It
doesn't.
only does
Okay,
if
so this is what I know. It's how it can affect the sellers trying to decide if they want to enter into a contract with the buyer's trying to decide if they want to enter into a contract with the seller.
Okay,
Anything else, it's really nobody's business, is it? So even
Right.
though we're in dual, we still have a duty to keep certain confidential information about one party to the other. Guys, remember, it's the firm that's in dual. It's not the individual agent. Okay. Somebody said it perfect in the chat. Less is more. Y'all know the number one way that we can get ourselves in trouble, not just in real estate, but in life. That mouth starts a flowing. That mouth starts a going. I don't know what your mouth looks like when it starts, but boy, once I get on a roll, woo, doggy, hang on. The best thing we can do sometimes, stop talking. Listen. What's that old saying? You got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you can hear more and talk less. Okay. Other general provisions, general brokerage provisions. General brokerage provisions address brokers as parties to the transaction. Again, real estate agents buy and sell properties all day long. I bought my house August 2020. Not only did I get to be the buyer, but I also got to be the buyer's agent. You know what the coolest thing about representing your house when you buy a house? Representing yourself when you buy a house? I got paid a commission. That's the best part of that story. Or at least that's what my husband says. We can represent ourselves, but I can't represent, for example, if I'm selling a property, I can't represent the buyer in that same transaction. Old Car says I have my client's best interest. But if I'm selling my own house, whose best interest do I actually have? Julie's, right? Can we see the huge conflict of interest here? What if I'm buying a house listed by my firm? My firm has a house. I had a listing once. It was so cute. My husband and I were sitting on the couch looking at pictures. It was so cute. And we thought about it. If you ever want to buy a property that your firm has listed, you need to go to your broker in charge. Your broker in charge may want to have a conversation with that seller. Your broker in charge may want to give the seller the option to work with another agent, or maybe even terminate the agency agreement if that's what the seller is most comfortable with. So if you want to buy a property your firm has listed, firm policy, go to your BIC and discuss it with them. The exception to this rule, if you have less than a 25% ownership interest in a commercial property, if you have less than a 25% ownership interest in a commercial property, you can represent the buyer in that transaction as long as you give them full disclosure. Let them know that you have a 20% interest in this property. If they still want to do that, you can represent the buyer, proceed with caution, and start with full disclosure. General brokerage provisions, broker name and address. Once you're licensed, if you change your name or your address, we have to notify the commission within 10 days of that change. So if you get married, if you get divorced, if you change your name, if you move, you have 10 days to notify the commission of that change. Once you guys get licensed, you'll be able to log into your account on the Real Estate Commission's website. There's a button on the home page that says licensee login. So you can log in, make sure your CE credit is posted, your post licensing credit. That's also where you can change your information, change your name or address. 10 days. General brokerage provision gives us advertising guidelines. We've said a couple times, I cannot perform a single service for the owner before I have a written agency agreement. So this falls in line with that. I have to have written consent to advertise somebody else's home as for sale or for rent. Your broker in charge is responsible for the advertising that comes out of your firm. Because whose listing is it? Is it yours? No, it's the firm's. Whose services are you advertising? The firm's. So your BIC should be reviewing provisional broker and full broker. BIC should be reviewing the advertising before it's published. They also want to make sure they're looking for things like possible violations of fair housing. Make sure you didn't put anything in there. The BIC also needs to make sure that the brand's identity is right. Your firm will have its own logo. They want to make sure you're using that logo, about brand identity that the public recognizes. When you think of brand identity, think about our golden arches. We expect our golden arches to look like our golden arches, yes? That's McDonald's brand identity. So the BIC's looking for various things with the firm advertising. When it comes to your advertising, we can't have any blind ads. A blind ad is one that does not identify the name of the brokerage firm. You can't have it in an email address. It has to specifically say the name of the firm. Again, whose listing is it? It's the firm's. So we have to identify. And guys, this does apply to social media. We could spend all day, we're not going to, but we could spend all day debating whether or not you should have a personal or a business Facebook account, Facebook page. And if you choose to go for a business Facebook page, whenever you advertise your new listing, personal Facebook page, whenever you advertise your listing, you need to make sure that you include the firm's name. Otherwise, that would be a blind ad. Questions? Okay, let's take 10. We keep going. License law and commission rule. All right. We're just trucking right along. How's everybody doing? We doing good? Doing good? So I'm going to take attendance. And we talked about advertising, no blind ads. Blind ad is one that doesn't list the firm's name. Before I flip the slide, again, let me ask you guys a question. We're going to talk about delivery of instruments. How many days do I have to deliver instruments, executed instruments? How many days do I have to deliver? And I'm seeing 3 days. So we have 3 days to deliver instruments. So what the heck is an instrument? An instrument is just any document related to this transaction. So it starts with agency agreements. We eventually hopefully get contract paperwork, and hope even further, we get closing paperwork. There's a misconception out there that agents can wait till the end of the transaction and send their clients copies of everything. And that's not true. We have a duty to deliver instruments within 3 days of execution. I think a good rule of thumb, if the party signs it, they deserve a copy of it. So you sign that agency agreement, you have 3 days to send an email with a PDF attachment saying, here's a copy of our signed agency agreement. I look forward to working with you. Have a nice day. That take you 3 days to do? It's that simple. Are you gonna save that sent email? Should that be part of your documentation? Yes. Go into that sent email and flag it for the transaction folder. So you have proof that you sent it, date and time that you sent it. And guys, please note, my job is to deliver it to them. My job is to get it to them. What they do with it once they get it, not really on me, is it? They're going to throw it away. They want to print it out, put it in their file cabinet. Whatever they want to do with it is up to them. It's my job to deliver. The exception to this rule is when you're delivering offers to sellers. When you're delivering an offer to a seller, we are to do so immediately, but in no event later than 3 days. This is the listing agent delivering an offer to their seller. This is the buyer's agent working with a for sale by owner. We deliver offers to sellers immediately, but in no event later than 3 days. Another question for you guys. And again, you can show me. How many years do we keep records? How many years do we retain records? 3 is a good number to remember, isn't it? We have to keep all records for at least 3 years. Does that mean I can keep them for more than 3 years? Sure. The minimum is 3 years. And we keep all records from the end of the transaction. May that be a successful or an unsuccessful transaction. Successful means what? We go to closing. Unsuccessful means we terminate. We never make it to closing. Whenever the transaction is over, is concluded, that's when our 3-year clock starts. So let's say, for example, you're with a real estate firm that maintains a trust account. We're getting ready to get into the trust account in just a minute. But you're a real estate firm that maintains, you're with a real estate firm that maintains a trust account. And let's say one thing we're going to learn when we talk about the trust account is that the earnest money could be in dispute. The parties have to agree to release the earnest money. Again, I'll talk about that more in a minute. If you're the listing firm and the earnest money is in dispute, for the listing firm, the end of the transaction is whenever we finally release the earnest money. As long as you still have money for a party, like in the trust account, the transaction's still going. So it might have terminated, but you still have the money. And again, we'll talk about disputes with earnest money in just a second. Keep everything. Everything. I'm talking transactional documents, so agency agreement, contract paperwork, closing paperwork. Keep all of your advertising. Even if you're advertising on social media, do a screenshot of it. When you go measure a house, keep all of your measurement sketches. It may be chicken scratch that you're the only person that can interpret it, but guess what? It shows that you did it. It shows that you did the work. When you perform a CMA for a seller or a buyer, keep it. Notes on a subway napkin, anything of relevance to the transaction. If you ever find yourself saying, I wonder if I should keep this, just keep it. Because what do we document? Y'all don't get anything else from this class, right? What do we document? Every single thing. Our brokerage fees and compensation. We need to disclose our commission. Maybe you're a buyer's agent and the builder is offering a $500 bonus, let's say, for example. We have to disclose that $500 bonus to our buyers. The buyer has a reason, has a duty to know if I stand to make more money off of them deciding to buy this house from this builder. And I have to disclose it in a full and timely manner. Talk about what that means. Timely manner means that I'm disclosing it in enough time to aid in them making a decision. This doesn't mean I can be sitting at the closing table and say, when you sign this document in 5 minutes, I'm going to get $500 extra. That's not a full and timely manner. I disclose it when they're deciding if they want to enter into a contract, if they want to present an offer to this buyer, to this builder, excuse me. Why does that matter? Well, let's talk this through for a second. Seller pays commission. If the builder offers a compensation, then the builder is offering to pay you $500 bonus. The $500 bonus is probably coming from the sales price. Who's paying that sales price? The buyer. So would it stand to reason that that $500 bonus is rolled into the sales price that the buyer's paying? So why do they have a right to know? Because technically, who's paying for that bonus? The buyer. Again, full and timely disclosure before they enter into a contract, before they make an offer. By the by, if you move forward with this house, I'm going to make a bonus. Full and timely disclosure. Restrictions on compensation disclosure requirement. I don't have to disclose my commission to a customer. I disclose my commission to my clients in my agency agreements. We spell out how much am I going to make if I sell your house. We spell out how much am I going to make if I sell you a house. And brokers, we don't have to disclose to anybody what our split is with the firm. Remember, the seller pays the firm shares their commission with the agent. It's nobody's business what my split is with my firm. Only the full commission that the firm expects to receive. And as we've been saying, the real estate commission does not get involved with matters of money. Commission doesn't get involved with commission. If you're not happy with the split you're getting from your firm, go find another firm. Don't call the real estate commission and say, they only gave me real estate commission, and say, why in the world are you calling me? Guys, remember we talked about antitrust laws, one of those being price fixing. The firm sets their policy on commission. The real estate commission doesn't, the local board of realtors doesn't, National Association of Realtors doesn't. The firm sets their policy on commission. I think this is about the third time we said this today, so we should be good. We can't provide commission or referral fees to unlicensed persons. They can only be paid salary or hourly. And in Unit 21, we talked about RESPA. And one thing RESPA does, we're not allowed to give or receive kickbacks or referral fees for recommending settlement service providers. So for example, I can't accept a $25 gift card for suggesting my buyer call this lender. I need you guys to keep in mind though, that RESPA and TRID are lender laws. So if it's a cash buyer, is RESPA around? No, RESPA is only around if a lender's involved. That's why the Real Estate Commission has rules on us disclosing commission, because RESPA and TRID aren't always around. It's a lender law. So if it's a cash buyer, the rule is there are no rules, except for what the Real Estate Commission tells you. Let's talk more about the BIC. All firms have to have a designated broker in charge at each office location. You need a designated BIC under each roof. Now, in just a second, we're going to see again about how you can become BIC eligible. The designated BIC can only supervise one office. So again, if you're with a firm with 12 office locations, how many BICs do you have? You have 12. You have one under each roof. One firm, 12 offices, 12 BICs. Is everybody good with that? You may at some point in your career want to open up your own firm. You're a little ways away from that. Step one, get your license. But at some point in your career, you may want to open up your own real estate firm. Anybody thinking heading that route? A couple of you. If you ever want to open up your own firm, you have choices. You create a firm, you get your firm license with the Real Estate Commission, and you make yourself the designated broker in charge. So you can open up your own firm, get a firm license, and then designate, get BIC eligible, and then designate yourself as the broker in charge. Some people with their own firms may not want to be designated broker in charge. Some people with their own firms may want to be a sole proprietor. Firms as a sole proprietor don't have to have a designated broker in charge if they don't plan to maintain a trust account, if you don't plan to advertise your brokerage services in any way. As a sole proprietor, you cannot even hand out a business card. If you're a sole proprietor without a firm, you're probably just a referring agent, right? Because you cannot advertise or promote your services. The only people you should be getting business from are those that should reasonably know that you have a license. Who should know you have a license? Mom, dad, significant other. Think of your little support system that you got right here with you right now. You're not out there advertising your services. And the word sole means what? One. So as a sole proprietor, it's just you. You don't have any other brokers under you. If your firm is going to have a trust account, if your firm is going to advertise, or if your firm is going to have additional brokers, you have to create the firm and have a designated broker in charge. So those are your options. Have a firm with a designated BIC, or be a sole proprietor, not have a trust account, not advertise, and only you. A question came in, every firm has to have a BIC. Yep, nope, every office has to have a BIC. Can the firm choose not to hire PBs? Of course they can. Why? Firm's policy. Guys, firms are pretty much free to do what they want to do, as long as they're in confines of license law and commission rule, and it's spelled out in their firm policy. Yet another reason why I want you guys to shop around, because every firm is different. More than 2 BICs. If you have a team, the team might have a BIC. So you might have 2 BICs under one roof, the team BIC and then the firm BIC. But the office BIC is still the designated broker in charge, right? So the office would have the BIC by the firm, and then the team would have a BIC. So as we mentioned earlier, the difference in the office and the firm, Coldwell Banker Advantage is the firm. Coldwell Banker Advantage has about 20 office locations across the state. There's a building in Winston-Salem. There's one in High Point. There's one down in Raleigh. There's one in Gardner. The firm is who? Coldwell Banker Advantage. To become a designated BIC, you first have to become BIC eligible. This is what we looked at earlier. To become BIC eligible, you have to have these 3 criteria. Once you're BIC eligible, you can become the designated broker in charge. Could what change? Could the BIC eligible criteria change? Sure. If commission rule changes it. And that's why I tell you guys are at least 2 years away from this. Let's not put our cart in front of our horse, okay? You guys are at least 2 years away from this. So 2 years from now, when you're ready to be a BIC, you need to make sure what the rules are at that time to become a BIC. The only thing consistent in this industry is change. And I'm not kidding at all when I say that. Hang on to your hats, folks. We're not allowed to draft legally binding documents. Why? Because we're not an attorney. When it comes to contracts and documents for others, all I'm allowed to do is fill in the blanks of the pre-printed forms that have been provided to me. In Unit 10, we looked at our standard offer to purchase and contract form 2T. That's the most commonly used contract. I need everybody to understand that's not the only contract that we're allowed to use. Standard form 2T is the most commonly used one. But commission rule says I can use another contract as long as it satisfies rule A.0112. You don't need to know that. I just put it there so you know it's official. If you really want to look it up, it's on pages 619 and 620 of your book. If any broker is using a contract other than form 2T, then it has to satisfy the criteria of rule A.0112. For example, it's not uncommon for builders to have their own contracts, to have their own sales contracts. It's not uncommon at all. I need everybody to understand I can use another sales contract. It just has to satisfy this rule. They provide me 2T because it's the most commonly used ones. Questions on this? We mentioned this earlier. Commission rule on reporting criminal convictions once you're licensed. Once you're licensed, if you get yourself in trouble, we have to notify the commission of the conviction within 60 days. Everybody please note, this says convicted. Does that say charged? I'm trying to help you guys out here. See how they like to trick you on your test? It doesn't say when you've been charged of a felony or a misdemeanor. It says once you've been convicted. So if you're convicted of a felony or a misdemeanor, you have to report it to the commission within 60 days. If you get a disciplinary action from your other professional licensing board, whatever that other professional license is that you have to report it to the commission within 60 days. Are you going to get in trouble from the real estate commission? Well, it depends. It's all handled on a case-by-case basis. Bottom line, what they're looking for is, how badly did you harm the public? It's my duty to report it to the commission. When it comes to this rule, I always think of mama. I don't know what kind of house you grew up in, but in my household, it was better. If I messed up, it was better that I fess up to mama instead of let mama find out about it on her own. Anybody else grow up in a similar house to me? Just tell mama what you did. Don't let her find out. Think of that as the commission. Tell them what you did. Don't let them find out on their own. If you don't report it, you are going to face disciplinary action. If you do report it, you may face disciplinary action. In Unit 8, we talked about our RPODs and our MOG, Residential Property and Owners Association Disclosure Statement, and mineral and oil and gas rights. I'm going to go back for 1 second. This is any conviction of felony or misdemeanor with the law, right? Or any disciplinary action by your occupational board. So if you're licensed in Virginia as well, and you get yourself in trouble with the Virginia Real Estate License Commission, you have to report that. The RPOs and the MOG, I'm sorry?
So the other thing that you're supposed to report is when you have a name change. That was one of the other things that we had discussed. If you have
Is
a
what?
name,
I'm sorry?
a name change,
Correct. And you have how long to do that?
you have 10 days, but from
Correct.
when? From what point? Like if
From
you're
when
going through a
if you-
divorce, there's no like, oh, and it's final
When-
at this point. There's a lot of
So
like,
when you go to the Social Security office and change your name,
okay,
right?
so at that
isn't that when the name change becomes official? So whenever it becomes official.
okay, so what happens if it's day 11? If it's reported day 11? Or
I don't know what the Real Estate Commission may do.
you don't know that. Okay, thank you.
I mean, the rule says 10 days. So what happens if you don't do it within 10 days? That's up to the commission. The RPOs and the MOG, guys, remember, these are mandatory forms with optional disclosure. The seller has to complete the form, but they don't have to disclose. And the RPOs, the seller has the right to say no representation. Mandatory form, optional disclosure. Brokers cannot complete these forms for the sellers. I can provide the forms to the seller. I can assist the seller in completing them, but I can't do it for them. Seller disclosures. Seller has choices. Yes, no, no representation. If they don't know, or they know and they don't want to lie, they may be best to say no representation. If they answer yes or no, they have to do so truthfully. The seller cannot lie. And guys, remember, regardless of how the seller completes these forms, I always have a duty to disclose material facts. So if the seller says no representation and I know the roof leaks, I still have to disclose that the roof leaks. We never have a reason not to disclose material facts. Mandatory form, optional disclosure. Seller's responsibility to complete. Failure to provide it to the buyer could be an out for the buyer. It could give the buyer a right to terminate and get the earnest money due diligence back. So if you got sellers dragging their feet, oh, big deal. What's the big deal if I don't complete this? Well, you could lose your buyer.
Julie, with the RPO, say, like you were just saying, if you know that the roof is leaking, but they did no representation, how would that go about? You just call up the other parties and say, hey, this is what's going on. How does that disclosure go about of the material fact?
I mean, yeah, just you can call them, you can email them, text them. You know, once you have a seriously interested buyer, right? So it's not like every buyer that comes in the open house, I'm going to say, hey, my name is Julie, the roof leaks, right? Once I have a serious buyer, seriously interested buyer, then I disclose. And it doesn't matter how I disclose it, but I have to disclose that the roof leaks.
Okay.
Julie,
Yep.
so you're saying the seller does not, this is optional, they don't have to do the disclosure?
They have to complete it. It's a mandatory form. They have three choices. They have the option to say, yes, the roof leaks, no, the roof doesn't leak, or I'm not going to represent if the roof leaks or not.
But definitely something needs to be on that paper.
Mandatory form
How long do they have
with it, what, half or what?
to get this paper signed? So before the buyer says, hey, look.
Ideally, we're presenting these when we present our offer. The buyer's presenting these acknowledging receipt. But if the buyer doesn't have them when they're presenting the offer, the rules say that the buyer has within 3 days of contract formation or receipt to terminate, whichever one happens first. And again, you guys, the buyer's not terminating because they don't like the way it was complete. They're terminating because they didn't get it. The buyer doesn't have to say, oh, wow, they completed it, so no representation. I like that. They're not signing that they like how it's completed. They're acknowledging receipt, acknowledging that they got it. General brokerage provision says that we have a duty, we have certain responsibility for closing statements, closing disclosures. We have a duty to make sure that our client gets the closing disclosure. Typically, the attorney gives it to the client at settlement. We have a duty to make sure that that happens. What another good reason for us to go to settlement is to make sure that we see the attorney handing the closing disclosure to our client. And we also have a duty to review it for accuracy. Again, pull out the contract and look at the sales price, due diligence, earnest money. Make sure interim interest is calculated. Make sure excise tax, prorated items. If and when you find an error, we also have a duty to report it. Pick up the phone and call the lender or the paralegal. Say, I was reviewing the closing disclosure and I think I found a mistake. No need to get all upset and jump up and down on somebody's desk. People are humans, humans make mistakes. The thinking is that the more sets of eyes we have on it, the better chance for accuracy that we have. I just finished a post-licensing class this past weekend. That's what I've been doing the last 2 weekends, is teaching post-licensing. And I had probably about half the class I had in pre-licensing. And I tell you guys, in pre-licensing, we're going to do a full-blown closing disclosure when you come see me in post-licensing. And pre, all you have to do is how much does the buyer have to bring to closing. You come see me in post, we are doing a full-blown settlement statement. And those guys sat there and said, wow, you're not kidding. We did a full-blown, yeah, we sure do. Because we need to have an understanding. We need to make sure that we can verify these things for accuracy. By the way, I'm also not kidding when I say we go through the 15-page offer to purchase and contract, pretty much word for word. I may skip a word here and there, but for the most part, yep, we're dissecting that thing. Give you guys something to look forward to. Any questions on our general brokerage provisions so far? All right. Now we're going to get into our trust account discussion, the long-awaited trust account. We've been dancing around this for about 2 months now, right? So now we're finally here talking about our trust account. First off, let's define what a trust account is. A trust account is a bank account in which other people's money is being held. Your money does not belong in the trust account. A trust account is a separate bank account in which you hold other people's money. It's a safeguarding account. Why don't you guys tell me in a private chat, what are some monies that we've talked about for sale and for lease that would be in a trust account? With some other monies that we talked about that would need to be safeguarded in a trust account. So I'm liking most of what I see. Let's make sure we're all clear. Timeshares are going to have their own trust account. We're going to talk about timeshares in just a second. Tenant security deposits. If you're a property manager and you have a tenant security deposit, that tenant security deposit belongs in the trust account. Earnest money belongs in the trust account. Due diligence does not. Who gets the due diligence fee? The seller. The buyer writes a check directly to the seller. Is everybody good with this? Earnest money goes in a trust account until we either terminate or close. Due diligence goes to the seller. A lot of real estate firms have done away with maintaining a trust account. It's a lot of liability. When you guys start getting those e-bulletins every month and you look at the disciplinary action, trust account pops up a lot. So a lot of real estate firms are saying, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. Our closing attorneys have to have a trust account because that's how they disperse funds after closing. So what a lot of real estate firms are saying, you know what, if the attorney has to have one anyway, then let's let them hold the earnest money. If you join a bigger firm, a national firm, you're probably more apt to join a firm that has a trust account. And if that happens, rest assured your firm and your new agent orientation will discuss with you their policies on the trust account, how they want you to handle earnest money, who to turn it into, all that good stuff. I went to a real estate commission class, I think it was the end of last year, maybe December, something like that. And they said something like only 20% of sales firms still have a trust account. So a lot of the firms, the sales firms, have done away with it. If you're a property manager, you have to have a trust account because you have to have somewhere to put the security deposit. The three primary features, the three things that distinguish a trust account from another bank account. The trust account is separate from your operating account. Other people's money go in the trust account, your money is in the operating account. Again, the trust account only contains money belonging to others. It's a custodial account, which means there should be limited access to the records, to the bank statements, limited access, and people with money in the trust account can't have access to it. And the money in the trust account needs to be available on demand. Let's say you have a really, really, really bad day, and every single one of your buyers terminate their contract. Bad day. You need to be ready to disperse the earnest money deposit. You can't say, well, let me wait till Friday and I'll get the rest of it to you then. It's on demand. If everybody terminates today, everybody should get their earnest money today. If we terminate within due diligence, the buyer gets it. After due diligence, the seller gets it. But we can't say, let me wait. It's on demand. So again, it's a demand deposit. It's got to be in a bank that's FDIC. Can't be like some credit unions aren't FDIC. So it needs to be in a bank. It's FDIC. The bank has to lawfully be able to do business in North Carolina. They don't have to be located in North Carolina, but they have to lawfully be doing business in North Carolina. Either one, doesn't matter. And the owner of the trust account needs to agree to make their records available for inspection by the real estate commission. So if the real estate commission walks in the front door and says, show me your records, you can't say, ooh, give me 5 minutes. If the real estate commission walks in the front door and says, show me your records, they do sometimes send out spotters, like secret shoppers. I feel like if the commission's sending somebody to maybe the mountains to investigate something, they may say, hey, while you're there, why don't you just pop in these 3 firms and ask to see their books? So it's got to be available for inspection. The words trust account or escrow account have to appear on everything. Signature cards, bank statements, deposit tickets, checks. Anybody that touches this needs to be aware that it's a trust account or an escrow account. The reason for this, if you were a one-man firm, an individual firm, sole practitioner, and that one broker dies, We don't want other people's money held up in their estate. So by clearly identifying everything as a trust account or an escrow account, they know they can't freeze it because it's other people's money. And whomever's maintaining the trust account has to keep accurate records. Who's the buyer? Who's the seller? What's the property address? When do we deposit the check? When are we going to write the check back out for closing? Back in my admin days, I maintained the trust account for my office. And I had, gosh, this is how old this was. I had those little green ledger cards. They were like half pieces of paper and they're like little green ledger cards. And I had this nice accordion that I put all my ledger cards in. I don't know how they're doing it these days. I'd like to think they're a little bit more advanced than green ledger cards, but they have to maintain accurate records. The commission doesn't specify how. It just says that they have to maintain accurate records. Firms are only required to have one trust account. So let's say there are firms out there that do for sale and for rent. So if you're doing for sale and for rent, you only have to have one trust account. You can have earnest money and security deposit in one trust account. The exception to this rule is if you're a property management company and you're managing HOAs. Each HOA needs their own trust account. So if you're a property management company and you have 5 HOAs, you have 5 trust accounts. 6, if you're still dealing with other tenants, not right for their security deposit. So each HOA gets their own trust account. The biggest, hands down, the biggest violation of the trust account is commingling. Your money doesn't belong in the trust account. Other people's money doesn't belong in your operating account. Let's say times are tough and you get a notice from the power company that says, if you don't pay your power bill today, they're going to cut it off. And you say, well, gosh, I don't get paid until Friday and I don't have the money to pay it today. And I really like my power and I don't want to lose it. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to borrow money from the trust account to pay my power bill. And as soon as I get paid on Friday, I'll reimburse it, I promise. That's called commingling. Not allowed, absolutely. The exception to that rule. Don't we love exceptions? The exception to the no commingling rule. If your bank charges a monthly service fee and they're going to do an automatic draft, you can have up to $100 of your money to cover that automatic service fee. So you put $100 of your money in, so that way they're not taking it from the buyer at 123 Main Street. Does that make sense to everybody? So you put $100, they do the draft, do the draft, do the draft. When you dwindle down that $100, you can replenish it. So you can have up to $100 of your own money in the trust account if your bank charges a service fee and does an automatic draft. Trust accounts can be interest-bearing accounts. If your firm is maintaining an interest-bearing trust account, each month when you earn that interest, you transfer that interest from your trust account to your operating account. So whenever you earn interest, you transfer it over. Our offer to purchase and contract says the trust account may be an interest-bearing account. We've notified the parties that their earnest money deposit may be in an interest-bearing account. While staff can maintain the trust account, the real estate commission is going to hold the designated broker in charge as responsible. Back in my admin days as an unlicensed employee, I maintained the trust account. I balanced the books when the bank statement came in. I got to go to the bank every day and make the deposits, which means I got to take 15 extra minutes for lunch, even though the bank was only 4 minutes away. So that was kind of cool. I maintained it. I was in it every single day. My BIC reviewed it once a month. Whenever I balanced it, when that bank statement came in, my BIC signed off on it. And if the real estate commission ever walked in the front door and said, show me your trust account, they're not talking to me. They're talking to the broker in charge. They're talking to my BIC, which is another reason why he wanted very close involvement with it. A question comes in, well, the test asked about commingling. Is it technically yes, or is it with you? No commingling with that one exception. The trust account records have to be current and accurate. They don't define current, but you know what? The bank statement comes out once a month. So I figured that was a good time to make sure everything balanced. If the real estate firm is holding the earnest money, if the real estate firm, not the attorney, but if the real estate firm is holding the earnest money, we cannot disperse it no more than 10 days prior to settlement. If the closing attorney has it, it's already there, right? It's already at the attorney's office. So if the firm has the earnest money, we can't disperse it from the trust account no more than 10 days prior to settlement. That's correct. And we talked about, we talked about tenant security deposits, licensees. You don't have to open a trust account. You just have to have it in a trust account. So if you know somebody with a trust account, you can put it there. But once you get licensed, if you have tenant security deposit, you have to keep it in a trust account. And then disputed earnest monies. This disputed rule is only referring to earnest money. So let's talk about this for a second. Buyer and seller enter into an offer to purchase and contract. The contract is pretty clear about what happens if we terminate. The contract tells us if we terminate while we're still in due diligence, the buyer gets the earnest money. If we terminate after due diligence, the seller gets the earnest money. That's all spelled out in our contract. Even though that's what our contract says, if we terminate, the parties have to agree to release the earnest money. Failure to agree to release the earnest money means the funds are being disputed. The earnest money is in dispute. The escrow agent cannot release the funds until all parties are in agreement. Even though the contract's clear, and the escrow agent might be an attorney that can interpret the contract, remember the trust account is a safeguarding for other people's money. I can't disperse other people's money without their permission. So if the earnest money is in dispute, the escrow agent cannot release it until they have agreement. If they never agree, after X amount of time, and I don't remember what X amount of time is, after X amount of time, the escrow agent can release the funds to the clerk of courts and let the two go hash it out in small claims courts. In which case the judge is going to look at the contract and say, well, it says right here who should get the earnest money. The judge has to be the one to make that decision, not the escrow agent. So disputed earnest money funds Once you receive the earnest money, we have to, if you're the escrow agent, we have to deposit those within 3 banking days of receipt or contract formation. I need to update that slide. You may be in the throes of negotiation and your buyer may look at you and say, hey, will you hang on to my earnest money deposit for me? Earnest money isn't due until it becomes a contract. So if you're asked to hang on to earnest money while you're negotiating the offer, we're not going to deposit it until it becomes a contract. So the 3 banking days, either of receipt once we're under contract, or 3 banking days of contract formation if we already have it. The exception to this rule is cash. If they hand you cash, just get it in the bank. Cash is readily available. So if the offer never becomes a contract, I can write a check out back to the buyer. Cash is really dangerous. Your firm may have a policy of whether or not they accept cash or not. If you're ever handed cash, just get it in the bank.
Do you keep old-fashioned receipts like for cash when someone hands you cash?
I would give some kind of something. I wouldn't accept cash, my firm, no, but if the firm allows it, then yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense.
Oh. Let's see, I got a little bit more to say about the trust account, but let's go ahead and take our break. And when we come back, we're going to finish talking about the trust account. So let's take 10. Last thing we do today, once we get close to 1 o'clock, we're gonna talk about what Thursday is gonna look like. So you guys can know what to expect. Cram course on Saturday. I will email you that link on Friday, so you'll have it at the top of your inbox. I don't know if your inbox looks like my inbox, but it doesn't take long for important emails to get pushed down to the bottom. So that's why I'll send it on Friday. So let me take attendance. Let's talk a little bit more about this trust account. Okay, so everything deposited within 3 banking days of receipt or contract formation. The exception is cash. Cash, just get it in the bank. Cash we can turn around, it's readily available funds. We don't have to wait for cash to clear. You guys as provisional brokers, you cannot walk around with somebody else's money. So let's go back to the scenario. You're a provisional broker, you're working with a buyer. You're negotiating an offer for your buyer. And your buyer says, hey, while we're negotiating this offer, will you hang on to my earnest money for me? You cannot walk around with somebody else's money. If you're handed an earnest money check to hang on to while we're negotiating, provisional brokers must deliver it to their designated broker in charge. So you get that check, you immediately take it to your BIC. If the offer never becomes a contract, then you get the check back to your buyer. The buyer doesn't know anything until the contract's been formed. If the offer does become a contract, if your BIC is not, if your firm doesn't have a trust account, go back and get it from your BIC and get it to the closing attorney so they can deposit it in their trust account. The rule says provisional brokers cannot walk around with somebody else's money. Full brokers should not. Bottom line, you guys, when you have somebody else's money in your hand, it's your responsibility. My suggestion is always to get it where it needs to go. While option money or due diligence fee do not belong in the trust account, we are going to be handling those monies to help play courier. Let's talk about due diligence. Let's walk this through. So let's say you're the buyer's agent. You negotiate for your buyer, you go under contract. Yay, mini celebration for being under contract. Soon after, you're going to want to meet up with your buyer to get 2 checks. They now owe a due diligence check and they owe an earnest money. So the buyer's agent meets their buyer to pick up the checks. The buyer's agent gets the earnest money to the escrow agent. The buyer's agent delivers the due diligence to the listing agent. The listing agent delivers it to their seller. We're acting as facilitators to get this money from the buyer to the seller. And again, when that money's in your possession, it's your responsibility. So I suggest, it says we have no more than 3 days to deliver. I suggest getting it to where it needs to go as soon as possible. Get it out of your hand to the appropriate place. If, as a buyer's agent, you meet your buyer and pick up the due diligence and the earnest money, those checks are in your hand and you're en route to deliver them. You are on your way to the listing agent and the closing attorney. If your buyer calls you when those checks are still in your hand and says, don't deliver them, we have to honor their request. It is their money. So if they say, do not deliver that due diligence, I'm going to say, are you sure? This could be an out for the seller They may be able to sue you for the due diligence and the earnest money because you have a contract saying that you owe this money. Are you sure? Yep, I'm sure. Don't deliver it. I have to follow my buyer's instructions because it's their money. So if they call you and say, don't you deposit it, and it's still in your hand, or don't you deliver it, I should say, and it's still in your hand, follow their instructions. Comments or questions on that? And as we've been saying, everybody's responsible for safeguarding trust money, due diligence, option money, security deposit. It doesn't matter if your firm has a trust account or not. If that money is, if someone else's money is in your possession, you have a duty to protect their money. Once again, I'll say, get it to where it needs to go. Get it delivered. Trust account falls under license law and commission rule. There's law on handling trust account. There's commission rule on handling trust account. The Real Estate Commission says, if you're familiar with pages 725 to 727, which is what we just went over, 725 to 727, then that's what you need to know about the trust account for your exam. Again, if you join a firm that maintains a trust account, part of your onboarding or new agent orientation will be to discuss the firm's policies on how they want you to handle the trust account. Questions on the trust account? Okay. The last thing in this little section is about BPOs and CMAs. We talked about these in Unit 17. Provisional brokers cannot do a BPO or CMA for a fee. Provisional broker can do a BPO, you just can't do it for a fee. Nobody can charge a fee when doing a CMA as part of our general brokerage duties. When you're preparing for a listing appointment, it's just our job to do a CMA. When your buyer wants to know how much they should offer on this property, that's just your job. You can't charge a fee. It's part of our general brokerage duties. If you're ever asked to do a BPO or CMA for an outside third party, that's when it can be done for a fee. We don't do BPOs or CMAs to determine value. The appraiser's job is to give their opinion of value. What we do with CMAs and BPOs is estimate probable selling price or probable leasing price. If you're doing a CMO or BPA for an outside third party for a fee, you have to follow license law of Article 6. Again, you guys just make a note. You don't need to know Article 6, but you do need to know once you start practicing. If a third party asks you to do a BPO or CMA, that would be a good time to look up Article 6 of license law and make sure you're in compliance. Of course, get with your BIC too. They can help. And anytime we do a CMA or a BPO, it's got to be in writing. Just print it out. You going to keep a copy for your records? I wish I saw more heads shaking yes. Why are we going to keep a CMA for our records? Because we document everything. Questions on BPO, CMA, Unit 17. So that covers the comments. A big chunk of your license law and commission rule are on the comments. It started on 707, go to page 728. Now what we need to do is go back into commission rule and pick up a couple other things that weren't discussed in the comments. So let's go back to page 611. Everybody, please turn to page 611. 611 is general brokerage provisions. And on page 611, one that we did not discuss earlier, it wasn't in comments, so we're making sure we pick it up now, is your proof of licensure. Once you guys get your license, they will mail you a nice 8.5 by 11 license. As a matter of fact, this is what I like about being online. Bam. They will mail you a nice 8.5 by 11 license. Get you a frame for this. Y'all worked hard for this thing. Go to Hobby Lobby and get a frame and display it proudly. Isn't that the fun thing about Hobby Lobby? If this isn't on sale this week, then it will be next, right? Or the following. So go get you a nice document frame. In addition to your license, each year you will get a pocket card. Every year that you renew your license, you'll get a pocket card. The paper version fits nicely in your wallet, or you could get a digital version on your phone. That pocket card needs to be on you at all times that you're engaging in brokerage activities. Is doing an open house engaging in brokerage activities? Is attending continuing education engaging in brokerage activities? So that's why they make it easy. If you're doing an agent activity, you need to have your pocket card. So again, you either cut it out and put it in your wallet, or you get the digital version, or you just do like me and have both, and you know that you're covered. Additionally, to the individual broker, each firm has to be licensed. The firm is required to display their license. Each office location will have the firm's license. We will talk about renewing your license in just a minute. If I don't get to it today, it's going to be close. If I don't get to it today, we'll see it first thing Thursday. So let's look at your book. 611, proof of licensure. There's the actual rule on broker name and address, 10 days that we just talked about. I gave you guys the short and sweet in the comments. So I'm just pointing out these things that we talked about in the rule if you want to read further to have a better understanding. Starting on page 612 is commission rule on agency agreements and disclosure. Unit 7 and the comments. So 612. Over on 614 is the rule on advertising. $6.15 is our rule on delivery of instruments, our rule on retention of records. $6.16 is our brokerage fees and commission compensation. Again, we've talked about all this, but if you want to know a little bit more about it, here it is. 617 is the broker in charge. $619 talks about drafting legal instruments. $619 is the commission rule and offer and sales contract. This is the rule that says we don't only have to use standard form 2T. We can use any attorney drafted contract as long as it meets the rule on pages 619 and 620. $620 is reporting criminal convictions and disciplinary actions, if you want to know a little bit more about that. $621 is our RPODs. Sample RPODs, 622 to 625. Oops, 626. We talked about the RPODs again in Unit 8. So on 627, we have a commission rule. Disclosure of offers prohibited. We cannot disclose the terms of an offer without the express authority of the offeror. Who's the offeror? And please don't tell me buyer or seller. Who is the offeror? The offeror is the giver of the offer, the creator of the offer, the person making the offer. They're making the offer to the offeree, who is the receivee. Offeror and offeree. So let's say you're a listing agent in this crazy market. You have 20 offers in your hand. 20 offers. Buyer number 21 calls you and says, what's everybody else offering? Can you disclose the terms of the other 20 offers you have in your hand? Not without permission of those offerors. Do you think any offeror in their right mind is going to give you permission to disclose the terms of their offer? Probably not. Questions on this? Let's fast forward to page 637. Let's talk about how you renew your license. We have to renew our license every year. I'll talk about how you do that in just a second. We have to renew our license every year. The Real Estate Commission's physical year is July 1st to June 30th. So we have to renew our license each year by 11:59 p.m. on June 30th. Otherwise, at the stroke of midnight on July 1st, your license is expired. Failure to renew your license says on July 1st, your license is expired. The renewal period every single year is May 15th to June 30th. We have May 15th to June 30th to renew our license. How we renew our license says each year we pay a renewal fee. Every year between May 15th and June 30th, we pay a renewal fee. For the last, cannot remember how many years, that renewal fee has been $45. Subject to change. But I can't remember how long that renewal fee has been $45. When you renew your license each year, your license is current. When you guys see the word current, I want you to see currency. How do you keep your license current? You show them the money. A current license has everything to do with money. It has nothing to do with education. How do you keep your license current? Pay the fee between May 15th and June 30th. You will know when it's the renewal period. They will email you. Your BIC will be on you. You might get a little postcard in the mail. If you didn't know it's the renewal period, it's because you're choosing not to check your mail or your email, listen to your BIC. You will know when the renewal period hits. They're going to be a little obnoxious about it. Failure to renew means on July 1st, your license is expired. If you want to keep your license current, you pay the fee. Is everybody with me so far? A current license has everything to do with money. It has nothing to do with education. A current license can be one of two statuses. A current license can be an active license. If your license is active, it's because you've paid the fee. And as a non-provisional broker, you've done your continuing education. And I will talk about CE in just a minute. So if your license is active as a non-provisional broker, to have an active license, you pay the fee and you do CE. Doesn't that kind of rhyme? Isn't that handy? Pay the fee and do CE. An active license is the only status in which you can advertise or market yourself in any way and collect commission. You can only be paid if your license is on active status. So to have an active license, it's current, meaning what? What does a current license mean? Money. And you've done your continuing education, non-provisional broker. Again, we'll talk about CE in just a minute. A current license can also be inactive. It's current because you paid the fee. It's inactive because you're a provisional broker without a BIC. As a PB, how do you activate your license? You affiliate with a BIC. So again, the day you pass your state exam, good job. Let me pre-congratulate you. Good job. Here's a real estate license that's on inactive status that you cannot do anything with. How do you activate that brand new license? You affiliate with a BIC. So you're inactive if you're a PB without a BIC. Failure to do CE. You paid the fee, but you didn't do CE. Means that your license will be inactive. As a provisional broker, if you don't do your post licensing within 18 months of licensure, your license will be inactive until you get it complete. Or you can be inactive by choice. You can ride the rest of your life on an inactive license. Why you may do that, I'll talk about in just a second. How do you keep an inactive license for the rest of your life? Each year, you renew. You could go 50 years on an inactive license. Everybody with me? All you have to do is send in that renewal fee every year, and you can have an inactive license for the rest of your life. Guys, sometimes in life, things happen. Another job opportunity may come up. Maybe you want to pause to start a family. Maybe you need to care for an elderly parent. Can we all agree that things in life just happen sometimes? So you may come to a fork in the road where you may think you're done with real estate. And before you hang up your license, I'm going to suggest that you consider sending that fee in every year. And again, I'll tell you why in just a second. If you have an inactive license, how you reinstate an inactive license depends on, I'm gonna have to erase that now, we can't see it. How you reinstate an inactive license depends on what your CE deficiency is. If you're inactive with no CE deficiency, you just have to send in the form. So you can take CE on an inactive license. And 5 years down the road, you've paid the fee, you've maintained inactive. You do CE every year. 5 years from now, you say, I want an active license again. Submit the form and poof, you're active. You're current on your renewal fee and you have no CE deficiency. If you choose not to take CE while you're inactive, if you're inactive for less than 2 years and you have a CE deficiency, they're going to make you get caught up on CE. So you're going to have to do the current continuing education. Again, I'll talk about CE in just a minute. And then they may make you do a couple extra electives to get caught up. Answer that in just a second. To get caught up on your CE deficiency. So inactive for less than 2 years. Again, is everybody good on this? How am I inactive for less than 2 years? How do I ride on an inactive license? You show them the money. If you're inactive and you have a CE deficiency of more than 2 years, they'll make you do this year's continuing education, and they'll make you come back and do 2 post-licensing courses, 2 out of 3 within the last 6 months. The thinking is if you've missed 2 years of education, you've missed a lot. Things change. License law and commission rule changes. So if you're inactive and you have 2 or more years with a CE deficiency, this year's CE and 2 post-licensing courses within 6 months. Question came in, can I do post-licensing while I'm inactive? Yes. As provisional brokers, you guys have choices. You get your license, you either affiliate with a firm, activate your license, and do your post-licensing while you're practicing, or you stay inactive while you're doing your post-licensing. There's no wrong way to do that. It's whatever works best for you. Questions on an inactive license? You've paid the fee, but either you didn't do CE, you're a PB without a BIC, or you just choose. You think you're done with real estate and you choose to stay inactive. Failure to pay the fee means your license is not current. If your license is not current, it's expired. So if you don't pay the fee on July 1st, your license is expired. I don't care if you did your CE or not. Failure to pay the fee means when you're on July 1st, your license is expired. How do you reinstate an expired license? It depends on how long it was expired. If you wake up on July 1st and go, holy crow, I forgot to pay my fee. It's okay. You pay the renewal fee, you pay a reinstatement fee. So currently for $90, if you're expired for less than 6 months, you could reinstate your license. If your license is expired for 6 months to 2 years, you pay the renewal fee, you pay the reinstatement fee. You take 1 post-licensing a class again, or you go back to PSI Testing Center and take your national and state section exams again. So if you're expired 6 months to 2 years, you're expired because you didn't pay the fee. If you didn't pay the fee for 6 months to 2 years ago, pay the fee, post-licensing, or go back to PSI Testing Center. What happens if you want to reinstate an expired license that's been expired for more than 2 years? an expired license that's been expired for more than 2 years, I will see you guys in my next pre-licensing class. You have to start all over. So once again, I ask you, is it worth sending in the renewal fee every year and riding on an inactive license? I can't answer that for you. I cannot answer that for you, but you need to ask yourself, $45 a year for the next 20 years, or decide 5 years from now, I want to get back into real estate and start all over. This happens a lot more than what you guys realize. The last in-person class that I taught, I had 2 people there because their license expired 10 years ago. 2. They thought they were done. The road of life brought them to a fork in the road, and they thought they were done with real estate. I said, well, I'm gonna say $45. I'm not giving the real estate commission $45. 10 years down the road, they're going, dang, I want a real estate license again. And there they were sitting in Julie's pre-licensing class. I can't answer that for you. Something for you guys to think about when you think you're done with real estate. So let's see, will being a brand new non-provisional broker be a hindrance on the training your firm? It shouldn't, because your firm wants you to do well and succeed, right? So if you knock out your provisional status and you're still a new licensee, your firm still wants you to do well. So absolutely, it should provide training. Again, you guys, the thinking is, if you go more than 2 years without any education, if you go more than a year, things change rapidly in this industry. So a current license, I need to make sure we're good on this. The Real Estate Commission says this is a problem topic. A current license can be active or inactive. Why is your license current? Because you paid the fee. A current license has everything to do with money. It has nothing to do with education. Failure to pay the fee means your license is expired. What questions do I have on that? Very good. So for an active license, again, I'm getting ready to talk about CE in just a minute. Seriously, for an active license, it's $45 a year and it's 8 hours of CE. I'm going to talk more about CE. That's all we have to do. So somebody asked before class, they heard North Carolina was one of the hardest states to get a license, but it's pretty easy to keep it once you get it. $45 and 8 hours a year. However much CE costs. Usually 50 to 60 bucks, depending a class, depending on what school you go to. Some firms, some CE providers offer CE cruises. You go on a cruise and do your CE. I don't think they let you bring drinks into the, I think I've heard that. They like check you at the door to make sure your cruise drinks stay outside the classroom. But other than that, go nuts. Okay. I know, right? They just take the fun out of everything. No drinking during CE. All right, let's talk a little bit more about you guys. I think we're all good. In order for provisional brokers to have an active license, you have to be supervised by a designated broker in charge. The designated BIC has to take you under your wings. As a provisional broker, when you're supervised by a broker in charge, you can do just about everything that a full broker can do. as long as you're under the direct supervision of the broker in charge. A provisional broker can go on listing appointments. They can have buyer consultations. They can show property. They can write up offers. They can go to closing. They can measure houses. A provisional broker can do brokerage activities as long as you're affiliated with a firm. Throughout this class, actually most of them today we've hit on, there are a few things that the PB can't do. The provisional broker cannot charge a fee to do a CMA or BPO. Can the PB do a CMA or BPO? Yes, you just can't charge a fee for it. The provisional broker cannot walk around with somebody else's money. So if you're in the throes of negotiations and your buyer says, here's my earnest money check, hang on to this for me, the PB needs to immediately get it to their broker in charge. And the provisional broker cannot be designated opposite of their broker in charge.
Hey, Julie.
Yeah.
When we pass that money to the BIC, do we get a receipt from them?
Maybe up to the firm's policy. You could always ask for one. Question come in, I thought no one could charge a fee. You can't charge a fee for doing a CMA as part of your general brokerage duties. If I'm getting a seller, if I'm helping a seller determine probable sales price, I can't charge them to do a CMA. That's just part of my job. What I'm referring to charging for a fee is if you're ever asked to do a BPO or CMA for an outside third party. That's the fee you can't charge for. But you're right. You cannot charge a fee as part of your general brokerage duties. There you go. Whenever you pay your fee each year, if that fee is declined, it could be subject to disciplinary action. Make sure you got the money in your account. Right now, as of just a couple years ago, all renewal fees are paid online with a credit card. They're no longer accepting check. I mean, like within the last 3 or 4 years, they're no longer accepting check. Welcome to the 20th century, 21st century. When you're submitting your application, if your fee is declined, they may consider that when they're reviewing your character. So make sure you have the money. Questions? All right, let's talk about CE. We do 8 hours a year. We'll break down those 8 hours in a second. CE is due every year by June 10th. The deadline each year to do CE is June 10th. June 10th, June 10th, June 10th, June 10th. That date needs to be up there with like your birthday. June 10th, very important date. Remember we said the renewal period is May 15th to June 30th? That's when everybody has the opportunity to send in their fee. They put a deadline of CE on June 10th. So they have time to process everybody's renewal during that time. Here's the deal about June 10th for CE. No education provider in the state of North Carolina is allowed to offer CE from June 11th to June 30th. It's a blackout period. The absolute latest you have each year to do CE is June 10th. You can renew your license up until June 30th, but your deadline for CE is June 10th. Assuming you pay the fee, failure to take CE each year by June 10th means on July 1st, your license is inactive. You paid the fee, but you didn't do CE. Most schools don't start offering CE again until the fall. The new CE material doesn't come out until like August or September. You might be able to find a school somewhere doing CE in July. I'm getting ready to talk about that. If your license goes inactive on July 1st because you didn't take CE, you are inactive until you can get caught up on your CE. And again, good luck finding a school offering CE in July. Most of them don't start ramping up again until fall. You have from fall, I'll just say August, September, whenever schools start offering, until June 10th to take CE. Please, I'm begging you, don't wait until June 10th. You may be a risk taker, and that's great. I love that about you, but please don't take this risk. All sorts of things can go wrong on June 10th, right? What if you're doing CE via Zoom and you wake up that morning and you have no internet? What if you're doing CE in person and you wake up that morning and you have a flat tire? You're not going to be able to get an extension because the deadline for CE every single year is June 10th. June 10th, June 10th. A lot of agents will tell you that we're a little slower in the wintertime. Isn't that a great time to do CE? Knock it out and be done with it so you don't have to worry about it when the spring market hits. Y'all, I used to do, I was kind of the lane of a real estate school. I'm telling y'all, on June 11th, my phone was blowing up. I forgot to do CE. What do I do? Well, you got 20 days to get your affairs together, and because on July 1st, your license is going to be inactive. There's nothing I can do. Interestingly enough, the pandemic was considered a hardship. They granted extensions for CE. They granted extensions for post-licensing. That was actually considered a hardship. But guess what? We still had to pay the fee in 2020. That was only an excuse for CE, an extension for CE and post-licensing. June 10th. Every single year, panic calls. I forgot to do it. Again, they may grant a hardship. The pandemic was a hardship. Active military deployment might be a hardship. I got busy and I forgot is not a hardship. So we do 8 hours each year. We have a 4-hour update. The update course is the same for all licensees across the state. There are 2 update courses. PBs and full brokers take the general update, also known as Gen Up. BICs and BIC eligible take the BIC Up, broker in charge update. Take your appropriate update. Update courses are the opportunity. There's over 100,000 licensees in the state of North Carolina right now. Update courses are one way for the Real Estate Commission to get the same information to all of us. Update information is the same no matter what school you go to. Additionally, we also do 4 hours of elective. Elective is a topic of your choosing. What do you want to learn more about? What's your niche? You choose the elective topic. I'm going to venture out there and say that think of a topic. There's probably an elective course out there. So whatever you want to learn more about, that's a topic of your choosing. So 8 hours of CE each year due by June 10th. Remember what we just said, renewal period, May 15th to June 30th, CE cut off June 10th. Did y'all just hear me say there's over 100,000 licensees in this state right now? There's like 45 people that work at the Real Estate Commission. So why do they cut off CE? Because they got to have time to process everybody's renewal. Not only do individual licensees have to renew, but firms have to renew during this time, education providers, instructors. Everybody's renewing May 15th to June 30th. So they got to cut it off sometime. I hope they get like temp help or something during that time. I really hope they do. Here's good news for you guys. I'll leave you on, well, maybe. Good news for you guys. Your first year as a licensee, your first renewal period, you don't have to take CE. Your first renewal period, you don't have to take CE. Everybody, please listen to me. You have to pay the fee. Always pay the fee. But your first year as a licensee, your first renewal period, the renewal period is what? May 15th to June 30th. So if you guys, let's see, what is it? Oh, it's March 1st, isn't it? So you guys are finishing up. Let's say you go to state exam. Let's say you get your license in April. I'm just kind of making stuff up. You get your license at some point in April. You don't have to do CE this year, but you still have to pay the fee. If you get your license on May 14th, you have to pay the fee during the renewal period. So whenever you get your license, ask yourself when the first renewal period is, and you don't have to take CE. The thinking is you just got out of pre-licensing, you either just got out of post or you're on your way. You have the current information. Is that good news? They give you that first year off. They take pity on you knowing what you just went through to be here. So no CE your first year. There are no tests at the end of CE. You just have to show up. I take that back. If you do your elective, a self-paced elective, they're going to have little tests at the end of each section to make sure you're sitting there paying attention. But as long as you're doing your CE live, either Zoom or in person, there's no test with CE. So once we get you through post, you're good to go. Questions on this, comments? You get your first renewal period off, pay the fee. Renewal period is May 15th to June 30th, every single year. So just to make sure we have these very important dates in our calendar. June 10th is the deadline for CE every year. June 30th is the deadline to pay the renewal fee. Question came in, will you have to pay the renewal fee the year that you get licensed? It's included in your application. So whenever you submit your application, that's your fee for the year. The first May 15th you hit, you got to send in the $45. The first May 15th, you pay the fee. But you're inactive because your license is current once you get your license. So you've part of what your application fee is going towards is allowing you to start with a current license. Questions on CE? All right. Let's take these last few minutes to go anywhere. I'm not done. Let's take these last few minutes to talk about what Thursday is going to look like. Test is next Tuesday. Yes. I probably have maybe 20 or 30 minutes more to cover. We are so close to being done, which means a week from your exam, you guys have 99% of the material you need for your test. What you going to do this next week? If you haven't started, this is a fantastic time to start. If you have, keep going. So Thursday, we're going to finish up again, 20, 30 more minutes. We need to talk about agent safety. It's very important that we have a discussion about safety. We're going to Kahoot. Licensed Law and Commission will Kahoot. So we'll probably finish up license or Kahoot, safety. We're going to go over the rules and expectations for my exam. You may have taken another exam with another instructor. Those were those instructors' rule and expectations. So we need to make sure everybody's good with Julie's rules and expectations for her exam. And then the rest of the class is going to kind of be a free-for-all. What questions do you have? What topics do you have? What math problems do you want to go over? As long as it's a math problem that you may see on your test, I'm happy to go over it. Remember, you guys, I'm a visual person. So in the free-for-all, if you want me to look at a specific question, please either be prepared to tell me where it is in the book or where I can find it and learn, test, pass. Remember, I'm also available between now and next Tuesday. Shoot me a text, shoot me an email. Never, please never hesitate to reach out to me. This is why I'm here. So that's our plan for Thursday. Again, give me 20 more minutes and we're done. We have done most everything. And you guys have a full week to bring it together. You guys remember the end of course review and learn, test, pass? There's an end of course exam review and the 100% material. The cram course from Saturday, this past Saturday, is in there. Page 1 of the math workbook will tell you what math to expect on my exam next Tuesday. Questions, comments, or concerns? Let's see what we got. We're in really good shape. I like it when we have time at the end, open up for questions. It is class time. So if you think you want to leave early, just know that that time counts against you. Okay. 101. Thank you guys. Y'all have a good day. We'll see everybody on Thursday. Have a good afternoon.